Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
It is not in our nature to pass a test that others set for us in order to determine whether or not we are capable. We know we're capable. So whether it's IMF or otherwise, we understand that he who holds the land holds economic power, and therefore the need to break the cycle of mental control, even to the extent that parents, black parents, Jamaican parents, African parents, do not always instill in their children the need to own land, to take back the land. And therefore we find ourselves caught in this vicious cycle of poverty, of ignorance, of apathy, of disease, and of death. But Malcolm X tells us that regardless of the Uncle Toms and the Negro leaders, and we're using that word deliberately, as Malcolm X did, who tell you that the times are getting better, that the times will never get better until you make them better. So if we're walking with our bowels and our hands stretched out for aid, begging all the time, then we are not on a path to making anything better. So for you individually, the question is, how are you making the times better? Malcolm X's message has echoed through the decades, and it rings true right here in Jamaica in this time. We cannot fail our ancestors now. We cannot fail our chief Taki. We cannot fail Paul Bogle. We cannot fail Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. Not now.
Bless up. My name is Jenny C. Johnson. I teach Jamaican Patois, which is Fluid language at Harvard University. Wagwan, me glad to meet you still. Me is a real country woman. Me come from a little town named Christiana up in the hills of Manchester, Jamaica. Welcome to the Patois class, and we're going to have real fun yard style. Right now, me live at Brockton. Me visited some place in Canada. Me go also some states in the United States, such as Georgia, Florida, Jersey, and it was a good experience for me. Me born April 1967. My father used to work with the government of Jamaica for many years. My mother now, she used to turn home and take care of the family, wash and cook for me. And me have 4 brothers and 3 sisters. Me is a married woman and me live at Brockton with my husband and my 2 boy picnic them. Me live in America from 1989 and me teach Patois at Harvard University from September 2014. Me enjoy it very much. Me love everything red. And me full joy me I can starfish and me love me soup can done. My favorite animal I want like a pussy me have, we call her Scruffy. Me have her a long time now. One of them day me would have liked to have my doctorate in education so me can continue doing what me do because I love it. And little more from now me I really love to see the Jamaican patois really take off because it's really instrumental to learn. So me I really like to see the class grow bigger and we have more people interested in it because it is something that we need to hear, you know? Peace and love.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory. When we lose our African connection, we lose our rural connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
Black power! 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 Black power!
Son of the man himself, Peter Tosh. From the album called Mystic Man. All right. By the way, you know there was a solar eclipse. There was a solar eclipse, I think, seen from mainly on the continent of Africa, Nigeria, Tanzania, and other countries in Africa. Witnessed that solar eclipse. You know, when there are changes like that involving the moon and the sun and the solar system, you don't always immediately see. Those who are spiritual enough feel and know. And I must say a quick happy belated birthday, and it has nothing to do with the solar eclipse, by the way, but quick happy belated birthday to Queen Mother Mariam Samad. She celebrated her 94th Earth Day on the 1st of September. I think that's the same day you have the solar eclipse, you know.
Gonna smoke it in the House of Congress. Let me a Rizla. Let me a fight.
By the way, wasn't that the same day that we had the solar eclipse on the 1st? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so. Thursday the 1st. Anyway, happy belated birthday to Queen Mother Mariam Samad, who celebrated her birthday on September 1. A Garvey baby remains loyal to the teachings of Morlamu Marcus Messiah Garvey. Lots happening. Going to be talking about this later on in just a few minutes, but sometime during this program. But you would have heard of the SpaceX explosion in Florida just prior to providing high-speed internet to Africa. Begs the question, was this an accident or design? We're checking on that. Something we're looking forward to today is Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Lewis Hamilton is on pole from Rosberg and Vettel. This is Hamilton's 5th pole at Monza, placing him alongside Formula One greats Manuel Fangio and Ayrton Senna.
As far as I can see, I see the music.
On the eve of a new school year, many are thinking of heading out tomorrow or Tuesday, but sometime this week. On the eve of a new school year, sadly though, we're still seeing the senseless bloodletting continuing to surge throughout Jamaica. You know, it might seem as if we're belaboring the point, but there needs to be some kind of concerted effort. I don't know if there's a will, and maybe that's why it appears as if there's no way. But how does a country cauterize, stem violent crimes, the killing of babies and women and children and young men, boys and men? We're tired of seeing black bodies of shot down, gunned down, of feeling the pain, the grief, the stress, and the hopelessness, and the resultant effects of fatherless children, orphans, motherless children, and traumatized families, traumatized communities. Do you realize that our annual murder rate rivals or even surpasses those in war-torn countries such as Syria? As black people, Black Lives Matter, wherever we are, and must matter to us first. We must refuse to, and endeavor to participate in black self-annihilation. Or better yet, we must refuse to participate in race suicide. How do we put race first? It is something that bothers me. It bothers you. Let's do something about it. Sometimes we have to take a stand, even if we're sitting down. And talking about taking a stand, even if we're sitting down, we saw just that. Colin Kaepernick, you must have heard of him. San Francisco 49ers quarterback in the U.S. aptly demonstrated this a week ago, taking a stand by sitting down. And he sat down during the playing of a Star-Spangled Banner. Right at the start of preseason exhibition games, he said, I'm going to quote what he said now. He said, I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. I can't look in the mirror and see people dying on the street that should have the same opportunities that I've had. If they take football away, my endorsements from me, I know that I stood up for what is right. Taking a stand by sitting down. And he's been supported by the 49ers, NFL Hall of Fame running back Jim Brown, National Basketball Association, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Spike Lee, among others. Sometimes we've got to take a stand, even if we're sitting down. So we told you that we were at Canex in Montego Bay on Friday. He continued with a stage show, concert, last night. And also there, Cathy Lennon, president of the St. Bess Hemp and Ganja Association, co-chair for the National Coalition of Ganja Farmers and Producers, CEO of KML Agri-Consulting Professional Services, advocate and expert farmer for 25 years. Gonna be joining her on the phone lines just to get her impression of Canics. Standing by to speak with Cathy Lennon. Lots discussed at Canics, lots of speakers. The fact that the venue was a convention center in Montego Bay immediately gave us an idea as to the audience that the conference, that Canics was geared at or geared to. And the fact that it was just about $250 to attend gave even a clearer picture of those who were expected to attend. One of the main guest speakers, as a matter of fact, he came pretty late, I understand. Minister of Tourism, Ed Bartlett. The former Minister of Justice was there, Mark Golding. Advisor to the Minister of Tourism and prominent JLP member, also director, I think, director of CLA. Delana Seavright was there. Academics were there. Politicians were there. And of course the business community, the expatriate community. A handful of visible Rastafari was there. In the meantime, I'm going to take this from the top again. It's a sound of the man himself. From the album called Mystic Man, it's Peter Tosh. And of course, it's dubbing. This is dubbing Buckingham Palace, and you heard before that Buckingham Palace, straight, but this is dubbing. All right, it's not very often that this happens. But I understand we're not going to be speaking with Cathy Lennon this morning. All right, now this is a very weird thing. Very weird. Very, very weird.
Reggae music, as far as I can see, I see the Christian music, reggae music.
At 5 minutes of 7 o'clock. Well, my own impressions of the conference, Cathy Lennon has sent a note to say she's too tired to talk. I'm not quite sure I understand the note, but that's a note that we get. And sometimes when you run a program that's a really tightly produced and a well-produced program, these are, you know, it's frustrating to get a note from a guest who was scheduled to be on, who says, you know, he or she is too tired to talk. It's a frustrating thing, but hey. All right, at 4 minutes to 7 o'clock. So my impression of a conference, Canics, Jamaica. Some highlights and some lowlights. And the highlights include a presentation I saw from UTEC, and I don't have my documents with me, but I spent a lot of time tweeting that, doing the social media on that, because the UTEC Ganja Lab seems to be way ahead of out of the blocks and doing pretty well. And that presentation by UTEC. So what it tells me is there is work, scientific research work going on the island, and that UTEC has taken a lead. And I must congratulate and commend UTEC for the work that they're doing in research and so on, where the medicinal marijuana is concerned. I think they're on the right track. And so that presentation from UTEC was really brilliant. Another high point that came out of Canex for me was the focus on value-added areas in which Jamaicans and others can actually enter, or through which Jamaicans and others can actually enter the lucrative cannabis industry. So they were looking at the broadest context of medicinal marijuana and the many different areas that are outside of farming that are open to persons who want to enter the industry, who are not farmers, and have been having conversations about when and where to enter. So I think that's something also good, and I'm happy I was there, because that meant something to me. And even as a journalist, I looked at where I could enter, because I'm obviously not entering as a farmer, but we know this is a lucrative industry, and we know that this is an industry by which Jamaica can lift itself up by the bootstraps. So that when and where do we enter, and how do we enter? And I think there are so many, that was highlighted at the conference, and I think that was brilliant. I also believe that this is something that the conference wanted to bring to the fore, and they managed to do that. And another thing that came out of Canex, and I wish I had the names, I wish I had the programs, but another thing that came out of Canex was, it happened in the last few minutes of the conference actually, and one of these speakers who identified himself as an American, can I have a list of speakers for Canex, who identified himself as an American, who actually pointed out that he has been living on the island for just about a year now, participating and looking at the ganja industry, the marijuana industry. And he underscored how exclusive the actors within the industry were, and the lack of access to ordinary Jamaicans, lack of access to information, to education, to public information, public education. He talked about a kind of a selfishness in the industry, where those who are in the know are secretive with what they know and do not necessarily share information. That resonated, because I have been saying that from the get-go, that as a journalist, it was too difficult to get certain kinds of information from people who are in the know. The cannabis industry in Jamaica, different areas are lumped tight like silos. And so this is what we're faced with. And here is an American who has come in and said, listen, this is not how we do it in America, because it is as it is already, with the legalities involved and the complexities involved, that those who know share information with those who do not have it and do not have the kind of access that those who know have. Another, Yasmin Hurd, is a scientist researcher who also presented at Canex, and I was impressed with her very short presentation because she's been researching cannabis for some time. She talked about how skeptical she was, and one of the things that she pointed out was that there is no need for mythology surrounding cannabis and the medicinal properties of cannabis, because the research has proven beyond a doubt that cannabis is king among medicines. And so that as a medical industry, that the anecdotes and the myths are not necessary because the science proves it. So those are some of the highlights, those are some of the high points. The distressing thing for me was that when I looked around in the room at the convention center in Montego Bay, I was very sad because I didn't see the people that I usually see at the ganja festivals and at the events, the cultural events, or people who I know belong to organizations and belong to groups that are, whether it's farming, producing, and so many other groups on the ground. I didn't see, for example, enough Rastafari. I didn't see those who had suffered. I didn't see those who had gone to prison. I didn't see the people who have been part of the fight for the recognition of ganja as a medicinal herb. I did not see those people at the conference. As a matter of fact, I saw an overwhelming Caucasian attendance, Indian attendance, and a sprinkling of Chinese attendance. And then I saw a sprinkling also of the business community in Jamaica and in Montego Bay. I saw politicians and political representatives at the highest level. And I saw rich people, just to say it plainly. I saw people with money. And I was distressed, not because people with money were there, but because the others were not there. And so it takes me back to that point that I've been making from the very first moment that Jamaica began to talk about the legalization or decriminalization of marijuana. That lack of access, shut-outness. Yeah, we're going to go with that word this morning, shut-outness of the wider population, especially those who have been the vanguards for the decriminalization, legalization, and for the recognition of the medicinal properties of ganja. They were absent. And why were they absent? Some didn't even know about it. And those who know could not pay $30,000. So those were some of the problems that we faced. So the speakers and the panelists also included Lance Johnstone, who is a former NFL player. And there's something I heard, that he was an ambassador for the, and I heard that. I didn't see it written anywhere. I just heard it and I was very shocked. Might be a good thing, might be not such a good thing, but I asked myself, why an ambassador on behalf of Jamaica? Why is he speaking on behalf of Jamaica? We have the Jamaicans, the ambassadors on the ground, those who have been at the forefront, the vanguard. So, of course, Dr. Knife was there, representing and doing so brilliantly as usual. So too, Dr. Michael Peter Witter there. One of the speakers also was Daniel Sparks, Director of Government Affairs with BioTrack THC, and brilliant speech. We didn't see, I missed Boaz Wachtel, co-strategist, Israel's medical cannabis program. Dr. Yasmin Hurd is the Ward Coleman Chair of Transnational Neuroscience and the Director of a Center for Addictive Disorders, Mount Sinai. One of the featured speakers there, Sebastian Cott, medical refugee and advocate, spoke about his personal fight to get his son treatment for using marijuana, and so many others. But really, there were highs and lows. As we go forward, I'm going to say once again to those in Jamaica, Rastafari in particular, to those in Jamaica who have been at the forefront, those who have stood up, those who have taken a stand even when they were sitting down, those who have gone to prison, those who have bled, those who have been battered and bruised, those who have really stood up when it was not in vogue to do so, to take a stand now together, or else you're going to find yourself locked out of this lucrative medical marijuana industry or just ganja industry. I am telling you, I've been saying it from the beginning, that has not changed. And going to Canex underscore that for me. So take a stand, even if you're sitting down. It is very important to do so. Get back to the drawing board. Speak again to former Justice Minister Golding, because he talked also about that. Speak again to people like Delano Seavright. Speak again to those who are shutting you out, because it is your own people who are shutting you out. To say the least, it's distressing. It is distressing, but it is also an unthinkable act that the politicians who signed the legislations, who signed off on ganja being such a vicious, dangerous drug, the politicians who oversaw the murder and the imprisonment and the brutalization of Rastafari and others who even smoked it, or those who planted it, that you are now the ones benefiting or lining up, literally setting yourselves to reap the benefits of the backs and from the blood, sweat and tears of those who got us to this place of decriminalization and to this place of a ganja conference in the convention center in Montego Bay. You should be ashamed of yourselves. All right, so just my twopence. I don't know what the different groupings who were represented there, what their take is on this. I'm really disappointed that we didn't get to speak with Kathy Lennon, but take what you can from what I just said. It is a very serious situation that is unfolding and maybe gone so far. And watch out for the sellout. Watch out for the sellout. I saw that in action. Watch out for the sellout by those among you who pretend to be supporting you. Watch out for the sellout. I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to put that there and leave it there. We can say much more, but we're leaving it there for now. All right, my co-host has joined me in the studio just before we go to the break. Ms. Chandra Shaw, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Did you come by China Highway?
Yes, I did.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. Thank you again for coming back this Sunday. You're co-hosting this week, so what do you have on your mind? And you're also doing the bottom line for
yes,
for those who want to know who we were talking about when we talked about Chandra Shaw. You're involved in so many things before you get to what's in your mind. A teacher, and your interests are varied and many. So let's start with that.
All right.
We're not interviewing you this morning, or you're a co-host. Yeah.
All right. So yes, I've been in teaching for quite a while. I don't know if that is fortunate or unfortunate. It depends on the angle you look at it from.
Very fortunate.
But you get to shape lives,
students,
and you get to share information and knowledge. So that is fun. I also have interest in research. And so anything at all I do, whether it is music or it is academia, I do research. And my latest interests have been about China in the Caribbean, particularly in Jamaica, and the African diaspora in general, the economic state of the African diaspora. Because we're having a problem where we have this issue coming up about Black Lives Matter, but all we do is have people talk and nothing more, and we have failed to recognize our economic power. And until we recognize that, so I'm trying to pass that knowledge on, and that is my focus for now.
All right, and I'm very happy to hear that, because obviously, we have similar interests, and especially when it comes to China in the Caribbean, China in Africa, and China in Jamaica. We want to segue into that, if you don't mind. But what else is on your mind that you'd like to bring to the fore this morning? I know you're doing the bottom line. What you're looking at in the bottom line?
The bottom line is looking at literacy, learning, and education in light of the CXC and Cape passes being released last month, and some of the issues we've been having surrounding the CSEC and Cape results. And so I decided to look at the issue of literacy, learning, and education, seeing that learning and education are often misconstrued as being one and the same. I thought I would speak about that this morning.
And timely, right ahead of back to school, and right when we're looking at some of those of our students who have really done well. It is good to actually put things in perspective. I don't know if you heard, Chandra, about the explosion at SpaceX launch pad at Cape Canaveral, that Facebook satellite. Mark Zuckerberg was in Africa when it happened, and he actually, he was meeting with so many of the young African leaders about talking about the internet, looking at how to make include more African languages on Facebook, because now there's just one African language on Facebook, and it's Hausa. Hausa is widely spoken, so that's good. But one of the things he was looking at was how to introduce more African languages on Facebook. I wish we'd see coming out of Africa, though, Africa developing its own version of social media. Not depending on young Mark Zuckerberg to come into Kenya and Senegal, and because we are like that. We did it before, we can do it again. But anyway, so this is one of the things he was trying to do. And as he was in Africa talking about this, we heard about that SpaceX rocket which exploded at its Cape Canaveral launch pad, and that was on Thursday morning. The 1st of September was the eclipse, right? The first, yes, the first. Right, so Thursday was the first, right? Okay, so it was the same day of the eclipse. And the rocket was destroyed, and the satellite it was due to launch on Saturday destroyed. So SpaceX has actually said there were no injuries as a result of the explosion, and they described it as an anomaly. It sounds like JPS, don't it? An anomaly. Yes. All right. So anyway, so Facebook now, Mark Zuckerberg said that he's deeply disappointed that the launch, that the SpaceX launch failure destroyed our satellite, and that he was actually traveling in Africa. The satellite would have provided connectivity to so many entrepreneurs and everyone else across the continent. So he was actually on a, this scramble for Africa. And not many are scrambling for in the digital information field. But Mark Zuckerberg has gone out, as my father used to preach and say, conquering on to conquer.
I actually saw a post last night on this page, Black's History and African Education, and that's where I saw the post about him being in Africa. And the person who controls the page was saying that this time he's not seeking to sell the resources or to exploit the resources, but he's seeking to market the people instead. I'm actually going to look for that and tell you exactly what they said.
I'd like to hear that, because you see, we have to look at this from many angles. So immediately we are saying, wow, what really happened to that satellite? What, did it just go up in flames? Was it by design or accident? Because here we have a little white boy, young, moving out into Africa in a way that nobody else has done, because everybody else has gone into Africa for the land. Now he's going into Africa for the minds, for, like I said, marketing the people. So I don't know. There's so much to learn from that Zuckerberg visit to Africa. There's so much to probe in that explosion at SpaceX launch pad at Cape Canaveral. There's just so much to talk about regarding this. And I think that we must have this conversation and ask ourselves, why not us? Why Mark Zuckerberg? So the internet is there, developed by a black man. We're going to get his name again for you. And the facilities, our ability to use the internet came from this black mind, this African mind. Why then haven't our children and we ourselves developed the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams and so on? Why are we the consumers, so that we're welcoming on the continent of Africa a Zuckerberg whose plan is to connect the entire continent of Africa by satellite? Why don't we have our own satellite when there's so much money passing through Africa? We have some other questions to ask about China and Africa, about kickbacks. Remember how we always said, Honorable, remember how we always said that to understand China in Jamaica, we must understand China in Africa?
In Africa first.
Okay. Kickbacks are not nothing in Africa. Look here, the Africa-China relationships, and we have pointed out that many, many times, they're not even hiding it. And so kickbacks in Africa, kickbacks in Jamaica. I'm going to take you back to 2009, because I did a program in 2009 about kickbacks and about Namibia in particular and Angola. We talked about the Angola model, and part of that includes the kickbacks. So we're gonna revisit that to say that for me, I don't know what the hoopla is about. Now we're asking questions. Now we are concerned. Now it is way too late, because as far as I'm concerned, a lot of that has already happened. We just did not hear about it. Now we're concerned because there's some political mileage to be gained from it. Stop with all that.
Well, we only hear about that when it's time to play political football.
Exactly.
Nobody's really genuinely concerned.
Apart from me.
Yeah. I mean,
genuinely concerned. In the political circles.
In the political circles.
Yes. Let them talk for themselves.
Yeah, they all work for their own benefits,
And do you notice that has the opposition said much about this?
No, I noticed that they've been extremely quiet.
Mr. B, we have professional athletes. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony. They stand up at the ESPYs and they talk about athletic involvement, social issues. We have Colin Kaepernick, plays for San Francisco 49ers. He decides, I'm not going to stand to the national anthem. Being attacked all across the country. In fact, Mike Freeman wrote this piece for the Bleacher Report, came out on August 31st, where NFL front office executives said, he's a traitor. F that guy. I will quit if my owner asks me to sign him. There's no way I would want this guy on my team. If their comments are true, San Francisco cuts him, no team ever signs him. Does that become a chilling effect for the next athlete who decides to take a stand? And how should the public respond to these kind of anonymous comments from NFL front office executives?
To mute the slave has always been to the best interests of the slave owner. And I think that when a black voice is raised in protest to oppression, those who are comfortable with our oppression are the first to criticize us for daring to speak out against it. I think that it's a noble thing that he's done. I think that speaking out and making people aware of the fact that you are paying homage to an anthem that also has a constituency that by the millions suffer is a righteous thing to do. The fact that these people are having these, how dare you speak out against lynching and all the things that that racism stands for, or the conclusions to racist acts permit, I think is a statement about America. I think he's a noble and a courageous man for having done that. Now I say this with some history of my own. I was at the height of American success, hit records and movies and being rewarded by millions of people coming in attendance to the audiences that I played around the world. The machinery of oppression was always at work trying to discredit me, make me a communist, make me unpatriotic, etc., etc., etc. And it takes a lot of courage to stand up in the face of that onslaught, that reactive moment, and not bend to the wind. What I would love to see is I would love to see a few hundred other black athletes take that as a symbol. It doesn't affect the game. It doesn't affect the way it's going to be played. It just tells you a lot about what the people on the field are thinking in their every waking moment.
So you're saying you would love to see athletes today rally around him, like that group of black athletes, Jim Brown, Bill Russell, and others, when they rallied around Muhammad Ali?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, the black community, now let me go further than that, the American community, the citizens of this nation are beautifully enhanced by being exposed to the fact that there's this dissatisfaction and that there's something they can do about fixing it. And I think that what he has done not only comes out of a tradition of protest, but I think is one of the most important weapons we have.
But he also says this 44 years after Jackie Robinson wrote it. Jackie Robinson wrote, in his own words, in his autobiography, he said, he talked about that first World Series he performed in. And he said, he stood there and they were playing the national anthem and they were singing and the flag is billowing in the wind. And he said, as I write this 20 years later, I cannot stand and sing the anthem. I cannot salute the flag. I know that I am a black man in a white world in 1972, in 1947, at my birth in 1919. I know that I never had it made.
Not only was he right in a righteous way, as well as in a historic way, but I think that what Jackie Robinson did encouraged an awful lot of other players that came after him to stand with dignity and to stand with strength in the face of that kind of debate. I'm just sorry to see that more black people who have attained the level of success. I once said to a group of young black artists, I said, never before has America boasted of such a harvest of celebrity as we experience today across the boards. We have more black artists with hit records and in front of show business and on all the charts. We have black athletes up the yin-yang in almost every sport. We have so many where black celebrity is displayed that could make a difference. And yet never has there been such an absence of black celebrity voice in relationship to the problems that black people face today in a severe way. I'm amazed at the fact that with Trayvon Martin and any number of people who have been murdered and who have been shot down and who are the victims of a certain kind of unrepentant racist behavior, that black people haven't flooded the streets in a greater act of protest to all of this that's going on. A. Philip Randolph once said, if you are comfortable with my oppression, then you are my oppressor.
That says a whole lot right there.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. News 1 Now with Roland Martin. Every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.
We are saying that those organizations which are politically on the front lines fighting for our people should come together and form a united front. This united front is a very simple thing now, a very simple task. All it means is that we come together and have common meetings. And if we hear one attacking the other newspaper, we don't respond to the newspaper, we telephone each other and ask them. And if we hear one attacking the other newspaper, we don't respond to the newspaper, we telephone each other and ask them. And if we hear one attacking the other newspaper, we don't respond to the newspaper, we telephone each other and ask them. And if we hear one attacking the other newspaper, we don't respond to the newspaper, we telephone each other and ask them. We telephone each other and ask them. We telephone each other and ask them.
Such a mystic man. I'm just a mystic man. Mystic man. I'm a dope. I'm a dope. I'm a dope. I don't drink no champagne. Don't drink no champagne. No, I don't. And I'm a dope. I'm a dope. I'm a dope. I don't sniff them cocaine. Don't sniff no choke brain. I'm a dope. I'm a dope. No, I don't. I'm a dope. Don't take a morphine. Don't take no morphine. Dangerous. I'm
Dangerous. Peter Tosh himself.
I'm a dope.
We're looking ahead to February already, you know. We're looking ahead to February. The big Peter Tosh celebration in Westmoreland. Let's line ourselves up for that. Well, I have a very special co-host in the studio with me this morning, Chandra Shaw, who is honorable. You know, Chandra, we were talking about Facebook, and you mentioned an article that a Facebook post that you saw. It's a Pan-Africa Nigeria, right? Pan-Africa Nigeria made that comment from what you're showing me here.
Okay.
Do you have it there? Can you read it?
No, I don't. I
so
lost
basically,
it.
well, look for it because it's long. Anyway, it says Facebook founder was in Nigeria. You ask why Nigeria? Well, remember, Facebook does not sell products. The products Facebook sells is the people who uses it. It converts the people into a market for various companies. This is why it makes sense for Facebook to visit populated countries like Nigeria and continue to push for Wi-Fi accessibility. The more people on Facebook, the more revenues from marketing. Because China has locked out Facebook from its 1.4 billion people, the single largest pull next to that would be India and Africa.
Exactly.
And it goes on to say, always remember, if they're not selling anything, you are the product. Of course, if an African came out with the same concept, he or she will never see support from Africans and blacks in general. China manages to start their own Facebook, their own version of Twitter, their own Instagram and Uber. Africans, we prefer stuff operated with non-Africans. Stay on the know. Africa and Post. Well, this is a comment from Pan-Africa Nigeria on Facebook. There is some merit in this. We can't say that there is no merit in this. There is some merit, but it's also pointing to the imperialistic function now of a role of Facebook on the continent of Africa, because the digital media is the next frontier. The cyber world is the next frontier, and Africa is being colonized and recolonized digitally. That is really sad. So too, of course, is the Caribbean. And when we talk about Africa, we're talking about not just continental Africa, but the African diaspora.
Remember, I'm trying to find the name again of the author of the Miseducation of the Negro.
Miseducation of a, yes?
Yes.
Soon give you a name.
I soon find the name.
No.
But remember,
Yes.
he told us, that if you can control the way a person thinks, then you don't need to worry about what that person does. Because if you put him into a room with only one door and you tell him that he has to find an exit without going through that door, he's going to make a way out. And so when we control the way our Africans think, his name is Carter Woodson. Carter G. Woodson, right?
Yes.
And so if we can control the way our Africans think, we don't need to worry about how they will act, because they will act according to how we want them to.
And we must break that cycle of mental control. And this is when we talk about breaking the cycle of mental control, it is more than a hashtag, it is more than a phrase. It is a call to action. It is what we need to do. There is we always say that we are not what we say we are what we do. So at the end of the day, even the word breaking is an action word. We must break the cycle of mental control. It means we have to do something. How do you break something without doing anything? All right, even if you're going to accidentally break it, we must break the cycle of mental control. And it is a call to action to our young people, our young scientists. What are we doing at our universities, in our IT departments? What are we doing? We just heard China has developed its own thing because China refuses to be colonized. And so they develop their own. For us, we're in a vicious cycle of colonization and recolonization and near-colonization. How to get out of this? And I think we have an excellent opportunity in the cyber world, in cyberspace, in the digital age, to reverse this process, to deprogram the mind, and to break that cycle of mental control.
And you see, that is why programs like these are always needed and are always important. China has made it their mandates to become secondary colonizers.
Yes.
They never try to conquer the land itself immediately. They come in as economic settlers first. They come in as trade settlers, I think was the concept I encountered when I did my studies. And they come in and they engage in own economic activities, and they try not to form any ties because they have a homeland to which they can look to return.
Of course, yes.
But our people don't have any. And so we become complacent and we become dependent. And until we go in search of real knowledge, then we'll always have this dependency. I think back to coming from primary school, they always show this picture of the African slave who was broken the chains. And I remember saying to a historian at one point that, we will forever ask our Africans to emancipate themselves from mental slavery. You know why? That picture says a lot. The chains are broken, but they haven't fallen off. What are we going to do to break them to ensure they fall off? And so the first step we need is our education system. We want our innovators in IT. We want our universities to put out persons who will make their own versions of the different social media. But we're not teaching them to do that. We teach our students in university to be conformists and to come out in search of employment. And whenever we have a mind that actually thinks outside of what we want them to think, then we have a problem. We think we're being challenged, and we think that it's wrong for us to be challenged because we don't see any improvement. And until we remove that barrier, then we will never have any free thinkers. And I think that is why the Chinese have had the leeway they've had. If China can block Facebook, come on. The next, as the article said, the next viable option would be India and Africa. And Africa just seems so
open.
willing to, it's so open to everything. And so too is the Caribbean and Latin America. And so until we have our own persons who are putting out our own applications and so on, this will not be broken because we'll only get information from them.
And as you talk about the Caribbean and Latin America, I make it a point of my duty to study WikiLeaks, and especially WikiLeaks as it relates to missives and documents, the relationship between Jamaica and Africa, between Jamaica and the UK, Jamaica and the US, and so on. And every time I read some of those cables exposed by WikiLeaks, that include our ministers of government going to the U.S. Embassy, for example, and having conversations with members of the U.S. government here on the ground. I am ashamed, and I find that I can't sit for any long time to read through these, because it tells you the extent to which we are being recolonized. It tells you the extent to which we are not independent. It tells you the extent to which Jamaica depends on America's and the UK's permission to do. It would, if it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable, but it is the most distressing thing to see the extent to which we depend on the imperialist powers to do anything. And when our ministers go, there's another thing that I noticed. It's not humility, but it is a way that they go on their knees, because that comes out now. You must read WikiLeaks.
As if they're groveling. It
is groveling. And I'm just saying, it's on the internet, just type in WikiLeaks and go type in, Jamaica, US, and they'll just come up. Those conversations are the most distressing thing, because it shows you how impotent, especially when the men go. You wonder, where are their balls? They have become eunuchs. When they walk into the American embassy, they are eunuchs.
You see, those are very tender things, and so nobody wants them damaged, and so the men will hide them when they go to negotiate. That's the power of neocolonialism. That's the power of neocolonialism.
What you saying, they hide them?
They hide them because it's
so they walk out back with them?
I don't know what they do with them, But
listen, I think if you hide anything for too long, the older you get, the more you're likely to not remember where you put it.
Exactly.
So, I'm just going to leave that there for a moment.
'49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick ignited a firestorm of criticism when he refused to stand for the national anthem because, he said, of prevailing police brutality and racial oppression. He's faced a deluge of attacks, including from many who say he needs to stand to honor military veterans for their service. Well, now there's a new trending hashtag which is going global. Vets for Kaepernick, who are standing up for the quarterback's right to sit down. We're now joined by two of those vets who have endorsed Kaepernick's protest. Ramon Mejia is a founding organizer of Vets vs. Hate, a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War, and regional organizer of Veterans Challenge Islamophobia. And Rory Fanning. He did 2 deployments in Afghanistan with the 2nd Army Ranger Battalion. He's a war resister, military counter-recruiter, and co-author of a forthcoming book, Long Shot, The Struggles and Triumphs of an NBA Freedom Fighter. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So I wanted to start with you, Ramon. People are saying that Colin Kaepernick is disrespecting veterans, that he needs to stand up, and that what he's doing is really terrible and it's disrespectful. How do you respond to that?
I think in a recent article, Dave Zirin wrote that too many people are talking about patriotism and etiquette instead of reckoning with the substance of his critique. I, as a brown Muslim, veteran, sit in solidarity with Kaepernick and an end to the criminalization and incarceration and the bipartisan government-sanctioned violence against black and brown people here in the United States. So I think he's well within his right to protest.
And Rory Fanning, you took part in your own protest in support and in solidarity of Colin Kaepernick. Talk about why you sat down. I think it was at a Cubs game just a few days ago, and that tweet you sent out with that photo got thousands of retweets.
Yeah, I protested in Wrigley Field to say that I agree both with the substance and the method of Kaepernick's protest. Because just as the U.S. has been killing people around the world since 9/11 with impunity, the U.S. state is also killing its own citizens, disproportionately black, with impunity here at home. So Kaepernick is completely right about, as far as the substance is concerned. Kaepernick's decision to sit out the national anthem is an act of integrity and courage as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know how anyone can really place their hand over their heart and say this is the land of the free when so many police are playing judge, jury, and executioner against those they are paid to protect. And I ask those who are calling Kaepernick disrespectful, what's a greater disservice to veterans who died thinking they were fighting for freedom or democracy? Going along and calling this a free country when the NSA monitors every email and phone call or incarcerates more people than any country in history, kills its citizens at an unprecedented rate, or conducts endless illegal trillion-dollar wars with next to no pushback from the media, or even undemocratically bails out Wall Street crooks while gutting public education. Choosing not to lie to yourself, or the world, or all the people who thought they would die to ensure we lived in a free country by claiming this country is free when it's not, I think is actually quite the disservice to veterans.
And Ramon, how do you respond to people, like as you said, that don't even want to engage in the substance? They're trying to shut this down by just focusing on his act of protest, and they're trying to say that it's a disrespect to you for that he's doing this. Talk more about that.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier to friends and to family that it's not a disrespect to me. What was disrespectful to me as a veteran was engaging in a unjust war on the people of Iraq. That's what is disrespectful. The fact that Kaepernick is sitting down during the Star Spangled Banner is not disrespectful to me at all. I think it's important for veterans to stand up and to be honest with ourselves and say that while we thought we were fighting for freedom abroad, we weren't. And we need to stop perpetuating this myth because the reality is that veterans fight for corporations and to protect geopolitical interests of the U.S. government. So we have to, in solidarity with the Black community here in the United States, to show them that state violence is happening domestically and abroad, and that we support our Black and brown brothers and sisters who suffer from police brutality.
And Rory, let's end with you. You consider yourself a counter-recruiter. Do you feel that it's right for the military to spend tens of millions of dollars, in the case of NASCAR, something like $100 million, endorsements to essentially make sports a recruitment tool? And we saw this even more during the heights of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars when the recruitment goals were falling far short. The military actually spent more recruiting each individual soldier than it actually paid them. And can you discuss that?
Yeah, in an age without the draft, the U.S. military is using sports to ensure its 700 plus military bases and endless wars are fully stocked with usually the poorest and most vulnerable members of society. Chicago has the most members in the JROTC of any school district in the country, 10,000. 50% Black, 45% Latino. And the military is preying on those who don't have a lot of options.
And when you say JROTC, you're talking about high school students that are members of, basically become part of the military in their high schools. So just for people that don't know that.
Correct. And we have 10,000 recruiters walking the hallways in this country, working with a $700 million a year advertising budget, trying to keep these bases stocked and these endless wars being perpetuated.
All right.
And they're using sports to do it.
We want to thank you both for joining us, Ramon Mejia and Rory Fanning. They're both military veterans who support Colin Kaepernick's protest. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us at the Real News Network.
Free Africa. Running Africa ni. Ahaye Jamaica. So what take kaka say boso kadia ewo Ire FM.
I'm recruiting soldiers for Army. Recruiting soldiers. Time is now.
Recruiting soldiers. We've got one right here in the studio. My co-host this morning, Honor Rebel. Chandra show. You know, there's been a lot of conversations in Jamaica about the possible kickback coming out of this controversy, the scandal that the PNP now finds itself in. You know, a few things I noticed that I want to comment on, and one is that, I think it's a TVJ interview with the opposition leader, and that interruption by the former Minister of Information, Sandra Faulkner. I think out of all that we've been hearing, a lot of mudslinging, a lot of dirt throwing, but sometimes even that can take a back seat to the behavior of those around you. And I'm trying to remember a time when I've seen a political leader, a former prime minister, giving an interview, and that interview being hijacked, taken over by her handlers, by someone around her or him. And I can't. I don't know if maybe I don't know enough. I'm not watching enough world news. I'm not doing enough research. But that was such a vulgar display of ignorance and arrogance on the part of Sandra Faulkner. And it is almost unforgivable, because regardless of what Carl Blythe has said, we are used to now in Jamaica, the political mudslinging. Sometimes some stick and sometimes they don't stick. The more mud you sling, the more the delegates and the party tribalists coalesce around the leader. So the mud hardly work. But what Sandra did, sent a message to a nation and raises more questions than we even want to ask right now. The extent to which she has been the one behind the absence of the party leader and former prime minister from the media interviews, the cancellations, the refusal to talk to the media, and so much more. The questions we have to ask because of how the interruption happened, because of what was said and how it was said. It shows control. And so people are asking questions, and I am asking questions about the level of control and the amount of control that the opposition leader has allowed Sandra Faulkner over her person, over herself. These are questions that are raised. Critical thinkers are not necessarily engaged in the mudslinging and the back and forth thing and the platitudes or the platitudinous peroration. We are more interested in how that go. So what does this mean? And if that can happen in such a space, then what kind of leadership are we getting from the Prime Minister? We're going to leave that for now, because those questions we have to raise elsewhere and at another time. But one of the things coming out of this PNP scandal is the presumed, alleged kickback raised by the General Secretary, Paul Burke. And China has come up in this. The Chinese embassy here has come out to say that they haven't given any kind of kickback. All right. Who is Tekla Lamek? Who is Tekla Lamek? To understand China in Jamaica, we must know China in Africa, because China in Africa, especially as far as the Angola model is concerned, is way ahead of where we are. It is because the Angola model works so well in Africa that China has replicated it across the continent of Africa and has literally lifted it wholesale to the Caribbean. So who is Tekla Lamek? Tekla Lamek is a Namibian public service commissioner who was arrested after a Chinese company allegedly, I think it was found, I'm the one throwing allegedly in it, they didn't report allegedly in Namibia, but hey, allegedly deposited $4.2 million in the account of a consulting company she set up. So as I said before, we have been raising questions in this forum about whether China is using its financing to buy the loyalty of the political elite in Jamaica and the Caribbean, as China has been accused of doing in Angola, in Namibia, and in other African countries. I could name them all, but we don't have time to go through that. The information is there for all to see. Jamaica is a country that is prone to corruption, so to a lot of the countries on the continent of Africa, and poor governance is something that we face. So that it raises questions also about who actually benefits from China's projects in Jamaica, on the continent of Africa. These questions have been raised on the continent of Africa. Journalists have been imprisoned, have been silenced. All kinds of things have happened. Not by China, but by their own governments, because they were raising these questions. So these questions are not new questions. They're probably new to Jamaica. But it is China. I don't think China has a law against kickback, you know. I don't think that is against their laws, and we can look at that. I really don't think so. So China is really not breaking their own laws, you know, and it is a way in which they operate. So the Tekla Lamek was involved in a scandal that included scanners, and the kickback was $4.2 million, and she was arrested. We'll tell you more about that, about her, as time goes by. One thing we know, that on the continent of Africa, China's aid comes with a major catch. It must be used to buy goods or services from companies, many of them state-controlled, that Chinese officials select themselves. This is something that we don't have much information on in Jamaica, but we can see it. We can look on and know when it comes to the labor laws. We'll talk some more about this. I don't think we have enough time to go through this, Chandra, because it really wasn't on our list of things to talk about, but it is right out there in the public sphere. And if we want to know more about this scandal regarding kickbacks in Jamaica and how China operates in Jamaica, do some research on Tekla Lamek. Tekla Lamek. That will give you, and that will take you into many places. Just do not just read that one story. Go down to the bottom of the page and see where they say related stories, and go find those related stories and continue. That will take you into many, many places on the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, as to how China does business. So this idea of a kickback in Jamaica is not a new idea. There's nothing original about it. As a matter of fact, Trafigura, and that Trafigura is in China. Trafigura is a similar thing.
Yes.
I was asking you, just as we were going into the break, whether or not the opposition has said anything. Sorry, the government has said anything much about it.
I haven't heard anything from them. I was actually searching to see if they have put out a statement as yet. I haven't heard anything, and I am wondering why. I'm wondering why the silence
really
is so
deafening. Are you wondering? Are you just throwing that question out?
You see, I was taught that there is a certain thing called diplomacy, and I'm going to try to exercise it.
Yes, go right ahead.
I noticed nothing has been said, and I'm wondering why the silence is so deafening.
Well, I haven't seen the papers today, so maybe something was said in the papers. So we need to get the papers in. Can we get the papers in so that we can just see what the Prime Minister has said about this? It's important to see that. Kickbacks are not new. We're not stop going like it's something new. It has been happening in Jamaica for a very long time. It continues to happen in Jamaica. When they come out, everybody, oh my God, you're holding your head. I can't believe it. Of course you can believe it. You're all part of it. You know that it's happening.
They can't believe it, or they can't believe we find out. Which one?
That's more like it. So we have the facts. Once again, though, we're going to reiterate, we're underscoring, we're underlining this. To understand China in Jamaica, we must spend some time looking at China in Africa. Why is this important? That is because just with some minor twitches, some minor changes here and there, probably to do with climate or land space or so on, the Angola model is what is being rolled out. And we've been through the Angola model. I think we probably need to revisit it. Is what is being rolled out here in Jamaica. And so it resembles what is on the entire continent of Africa, with the exception of Sudan, and what is in the rest of the Caribbean.
Well, first of all, there is no police brutality in America. We ended that back in the 60s.
I wasn't a victim of police brutality. I got my ass whooped by the police before.
Yeah.
But you know why? Because I was belligerent.
Okay.
I was belligerent and I was conducting myself like a nigger.
I don't think all cops are bad. You know, I think there's some great cops out there who do everything in their power to uphold the badge. And
I face more danger and I feel more danger putting on my uniform every day and going into the American ghetto to police. And as a black victim, and I've talked to a lot of black victims of crime, they face more fear and danger at the hands of other black people in terms of victimization, in terms of crime, than they do from some anomaly and an outlier where some kook goes into a church and sprays the place up with bullets, killing people who are in prayer.
Sexual assault is a part of black history. It truly is.
You know, you don't sit up there and gloss over police brutality. But at the same time, we have a bigger problem in the black community, and that's black on black crime.
For me, there is a larger issue when we talk about rape, the rape culture in our country, and particularly in the black community.
But we keep screaming Black Lives Matter. If they really matter, then let's do ourselves a favor. Let's stop killing black folks.
I think as long as we have black on black crime and black, you know, one black man killing another, you know, if Black Lives Matter, then they should matter all the time.
Slavery was about togetherness, and understand that we must overcome together. Not that we must separate ourselves to highlight our skin color. If you want to highlight our skin color, highlight the people that's doing the successful things in the communities that we should be highlighting.
It is entirely appropriate that the mayor of Baltimore, who I spoke to yesterday, my understanding is you've got some of the same organizers now going back into these communities to try to clean up in the aftermath of a handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who tore up the place.
So you say there shouldn't be a BET change?
No, I don't think so, no. Just like there shouldn't be a Black History Month. You know, we're Americans, period, that's it.
Are you saying there shouldn't be a Black History Month because there isn't a White History Month?
Exactly, exactly.
It was like Stacey Dash said, that it shouldn't be no BET, everybody should be Americans. And I was like, if she said that, then I feel like I agree with that, because it's only two type of people in life: real people and fake people.
Right.
They got these people talking about all black, man, Black Lives Matter, man, all lives matter.
Very, very happy to welcome to the studio. You know, we really love to talk to our brilliant students, and my co-host this morning is a teacher. She's so much more, but her main profession right now is as a teacher of a high school, CXC-age children. So I'm quite sure, Chandri, that you are interested in this next segment coming up.
Definitely.
All right, so you're joined by two brilliant young men. I know in your bottom line you're taking it a bit further to ask questions about literacy and learning in Jamaica, and what are we preparing our children for. I want to say welcome to our very, very special guests in the studio this morning. Their principal is with them, and I want to say a very pleasant morning, or you don't have your microphone yet, Mr. Raymond Treasure. The principal of Your Castle High School is in studio. Also with us, excellent student of 2016, Fitzroy Wickham. Who's Fitzroy? You are. Hey, Fitzroy. Good morning. How you doing?
Hello, good morning. I'm doing well.
Okay. Wow, Fitzroy. So like you can work in a radio, man. But you want to be like is you the one who want to be a neurosurgeon?
Yes, sir. That's
there
me.
you go. Well, you can do both.
Thank you so much.
All right, brilliant. And we have beside Fitzroy our next very special guest, Kyle MacDonald. Hey, Kyle.
Hello.
Well, let me see if I don't have your microphone on. Say hello again.
Hello.
Oh, there you go. All right, grab the microphone. Let me turn it off, and you grab it so that it's closer to you. All right, thank you so much for coming in. Mr. Raymond Treasure, how you doing, sir?
Not bad at all, and good morning to you.
You know what I'm going to talk about, Mr. Raymond Treasure?
Yes.
This is not the first time I'm interviewing you, as you remind me.
I was one of your first.
You know, this to me, I can't stop talking about it, you know. Because guess what? I have been thinking about it, and I remember, and what I remember more than anything is that at the time of the interview, I had questioned your surname.
Yes, yes.
So, Mr. Raymond Treasure...
I was fresh out of Your Castle at the time.
And I was... But you never leave Your Castle, did you? Oh, because Your Castle had sixth form at the time?
No.
Oh, so you're fresh out of fifth form?
Yes, and went on to the community college.
Right, and I was still going to St. Mary High School.
Yes.
So I had a program on JBC Radio Northeast.
Yes.
What was it called? Youth Forum?
Yes.
You know, I can't believe this. No, honestly, hear the word forum come up and I not even remember that. This is the Africa Forum, you know.
Yes.
Look at your students laughing. They can't believe that we know each other from we are picnic, you know.
Yes, I mean...
No, but it is.
From there about, from where about...
Younger than them.
Right, yes.
Younger than them, because I was in lower six and you just leave fifth form.
And Mr. Young was experimenting.
It wasn't Mr. Young. It was JBC, you know.
Oh, yes, that is true.
It
Radio
was JBC,
Northeast.
Radio Northeast. Yes, because we got that license.
Yes.
But wow, what did we talk about? Do you remember?
Many things. I remember taking my guitar to play and sing and all those things.
I can't believe it. Chandra, you hear that? I cannot believe it. That here we are now, with 5 years after.
Yes. You're right about that.
Before anybody gets any ideas, here we are. 5 years after. You know, Radio Northeast was like in the 1980s.
Yes.
Right, but here we are. But we were children. We were very young.
Tell you, I mean, that was a break though. But
you don't look a day older. Yeah, that was really something else.
Well, I'm happy that you are here still, exposing our young people.
Yes.
And the things we do.
Right, and you have been doing, you have, just to talk about you a bit before we go to our students, because since we're picking up from an interview that we did in the 1980s.
Yes.
So after Your Castle, you went to Brownstown Community College for the A-levels.
Right.
What happened after that?
I went off to University of the West Indies, majored in history and social sciences.
Yes.
And went back to Brownstown Community College. And then after spending about 18 years, moved on to Your Castle as the principal. So I've been serving Your Castle now for about 7 years, moving into my 8th year. And it has been really a very rewarding experience. We have been getting some good results. Students have been achieving some phenomenal things, both nationally and internationally. And I guess that is the reason you have these two boys here
this
today.
is why we have these two young men in the studio who have been doing brilliantly. So we're going to start with Kyle. Kyle MacDonald, tell me a little bit about yourself, because are you still at Your Castle? You just left?
No, I'm still at Your Castle, going into upper six now. I'm presently the head boy of Your Castle.
Okay, brilliant. Were you here before?
No, I wasn't here before.
Okay, all right. Because Your Castle,
that was a
students
deputy
of
head
Your
boy,
Castle,
right?
Because Your Castle is a member. The school is a member of the Africa Forum Book Club, the RFM Book Club, and I know they're reading now Integration Trap, Generation Gap by Professor Obert T. Shaka. Is a book we're reading now. So just grab a copy of that and read.
I'll make sure.
Yeah. All right. So you tell me about your fifth form. What happened in fifth form, because you really got some good grades.
Oh, in fifth form I did, I started doing CXCs from grade 10.
Okay.
In grade 10 I did 3 CXCs, right?
I got a 1 in mathematics and 2s in Spanish and social studies.
Okay, brilliant.
So then I went to grade 11 in 5th form, that is, and I became the deputy head boy at that time. And I took up 3 other subjects: additional maths, history, and principles of business, as well as the subjects I was already carrying, which were English, biology, physics, chemistry, information technology.
That's a whole lot of subjects for
so
K, yeah.
now I was doing 8 subjects
Right.
at that time. So after studying and all of that hard work, getting teaching, good teachers and everything, I came out with 8 ones.
Wow.
On top of the 3 other
You
subjects
just gave
I
me
already
just that
had.
8-1 give me goosebumps. It's like, wow. Yeah.
So presently I have 11 subjects, 9 ones with distinctions and 2 twos. So
No, honestly, my head are raising on. No, seriously, I'm telling you. And you don't finish school yet?
No, I haven't finished school yet. And so I became one of the champion performers at York Castle as well as in St. Anne. From that, and I got awarded by Dayton Campbell, the school itself, and also a regional program as well, a regional thing.
All right, we're going to come back to you to ask about, looking into the future, what are your plans and so on. But let me go to Fitzroy Wickham now. Fitzroy, a little bit about yourself also. You're no longer at York Castle?
Well,
You're teaching there now?
Yes, I'm in a different capacity right now, as I'm taking a gap year before going on to further my studies.
And I like that, and I want to come to the volunteerism. But just before that, tell me a little bit about your academic achievements at York Castle.
Well, at York Castle, as you know, academics is it may be my strongest point, and I've excelled academically at York Castle for the 7 years I spent there as a student. In grade 11, unlike Kyle, I did not start doing C6 from grade 10. I wanted to do everything in grade 11.
Wow.
And so
yes.
In grade 11, I sat 12 C6 subjects because I wanted to set a new record at the school. And
stop, hold a minute. You're serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
You sat 12, you wanted to set up, what was the record?
It was 11 on the board. I have a board in the lobby that shows the top C6 student for each year, and the record standing was 11 subjects, and I wanted to make
top
a
man.
new record. Yes,
so you went to 12.
I went for 12.
Mr. Treasure? Is some serious competition going on at York Castle?
Yes, I mean, especially, you see, we are talking about boys because there's this argument that our men are being marginalized in the society. At York Castle, our boys actually outperform girls. In fact, we have more boys than girls at York Castle.
Wow.
And they compete in this way. So, I mean, Fitzroy did 12. Somebody tried for... And when we say 12, he got 12 ones, 12 distinctions.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
stop it. Fitzroy, could you say that? I'm sorry, Mr. Treasure preempted you. Tell me about the 12 ones.
Yes, so after all the hard work, the contribution of my teachers, family, Mr. Treasure was phenomenal. I got 12 distinctions, and to make it even better, the icing on the cake, I was named Jamaica's top C6 student for 2014.
Wow,
yes.
Wow, 12 distinctions. So are you still holding the record?
At York Castle? Yes, I'm still holding the record.
Okay, but you want it to be broken, no?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So is anybody trying to
well, interestingly, he has set a new one for Cape, because as you know, when we're doing
Mr.
Cape,
Treasure, I'm going to go back to him now because look here.
when we're doing Cape, the majority would be three GCEs.
Yeah.
He did 6.
Okay, tell me about the Cape. So you have another record in Cape at York Castle. Tell me about
so both in both year 1 and year 2, I did 6 units of Cape each in pure and applied sciences, and so at the end of the day, I have 24 CXC subjects.
24.
Yes.
We had a young lady with 22 last week, and we thought that was wow. It is wow. But here's a young man with 24. You're a record setter. So Kyle.
Yes, miss.
You're breaking that record? No?
No, I wouldn't say that. Right now I'm doing 5. I already got 4 ones and 1 2.
Yeah.
But I'm really up there, and I'm going to make sure I get my ones next year and everything.
Yeah.
So.
All right, brilliant. So let us talk about what you have done, Fitzroy, since that, because you're taking a year break, but I know you've been very involved, very engaged with academic community. So let's talk about that.
You want to know what?
Here overseas. You're the one you've been overseas, no?
This year.
No, the catering. Is it catering?
No,
that's me.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. So talk to me about that. Yeah.
Oh, well, catering. I went up on a STEM program, a pre-college program that they award scholarships on, right?
Yeah.
So in that program, you get to do various STEM subjects, calculus, rocketry engineering, chemistry, physics, and computer science and more, right? So basically, they offered 5 academic subjects, right? So at the end of that program, I collected 4 of the trophies for those 5 subjects. That means I positioned first place in 4 of the subjects of the 5. And then I came out first overall in that program. So I got a 180,000 US scholarship.
Wow, that is brilliant. So it's for when?
That is for, that scholarship starts next year.
Okay.
So
you're gonna go
back to upper 6.
Right.
So I'm probably going to do, say, 1 term, and then I'll start catering in January or so.
Oh.
And that's to study engineering. And
wow.
36.
No, stop it. Look, I cannot manage the goose pimples. Really? No, this is brilliant, Mr. Treasure.
Yeah, they're really doing well. Yes. I'm very proud. Maybe that's why I'm staying so long at your castle.
You're doing a brilliant work there.
Every year they do something beyond the ordinary.
Yes.
So you know.
But that's really good leadership. I must commend you on that. That's excellent leadership. So this university, this tell us a little bit from the principal's perspective about that university. Well,
Kettering University is based in Michigan, and one of their top universities. So Kyle will be going off to study engineering. What he didn't say is that 36 students from all over the region were actually a part of this program, from Mexico, different North American, Latin American countries, and so on. So he was a top student from about 36. 5 other Jamaicans went up. In fact, I was teasing him a few minutes ago that the rest were sponsored by Scotia. He had to pay from his own funds. And he came out as the top student with 180,000 US. I mean, that's a lot of money. You know?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I am so proud of you. I am. I am very proud of you. All right. Okay, so let us look now at well, your future obviously includes studying engineering in the US. Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, pertaining to engineering, I'm not really sure it's particular engineering right now, right? So I'm planning to either go into that or medicine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if I do go into medicine, I'm planning to go into surgery.
Okay.
Because going into medicine, you really want to go for the max, right? So surgeon would be my aspiration.
That's a
but
brilliant idea.
If I do go into engineering, I would like to become a chemical engineer.
Okay.
Well, in the case of Fitzroy, he also got a scholarship to the University of Ontario. It's just that Fitzroy is insisting that he wants to go to Yale, but he has several offers. But in his mind, Yale is the place
I don't want you
he wants to go.
You can't get into Yale.
Yes, I can.
Right, and you're going to get into Yale.
Yes,
So this 1 year that you're taking off now, you're doing some volunteer work and you're into volunteerism, but you're also at the same time giving back to your alma mater, which is your castle. Tell me about that.
Well, I'm embarking on my gap year right now, and I chose to stay at York Castle because it's quite close to my community. I don't want to leave my community for now because, as you know, I'm from Orange Hill, for listeners who do not know, and some things are happening in Orange Hill that I personally do not appreciate. It's bringing a bad name on the community, and before I leave to...
When you say some things happening there, what do you mean? Because and you say it's bad name, but just so our listeners have an idea. You're talking about crime and so on?
Well, I'm sure we're aware of the 2 rape cases that happened this year.
Right. Okay, so leave it there. So, as a young man, you want to see change in your community. All right. So go ahead.
Because the boys who did those crimes, one was 18.
Who were accused of doing it.
Accused. One was 18, my age, and one was 19. So, if boys my age can have a negative impact on a community, why can't a boy of the same age have a positive impact on the same community? And so,
I'm applauding that. Yeah.
I really don't know how, but I don't want to say I didn't try before leaving. So right now I'm actually the public relations officer for the Orange Hill Community Support Group, and that group was started as a result of the recent activities in the community to see how we can stem the problem and how we can get a police youth club started in the community to just teach our young men the laws of Jamaica and help them to become law-abiding citizens.
You know, that is so heartwarming to me, and I'm taking this on seriously, just listening to you talk, because there seems to be so much hopelessness in our country, and here you are giving us, the entire nation, hope. You see, Chandra Shaw walking for taking microphone for you. Go ahead, Chandra, take your microphone and say what you want to say, because as a teacher, I can literally see you literally dancing, wanting to respond to what you're hearing.
I'm listening to what's his name?
Fitzroy.
I'm listening to him and thinking, these are the students I don't like. Because you know why? Every year you say you're going to leave the profession, you get tired because of these students. so these are the ones they get to not like. But I'm listening to him, and if we have more men thinking along these lines, our future looks very bright,
Of course.
Very, very bright. I'm still trying to understand it. 2 subjects.
But
I think I'll try to understand that later on.
Yes, we've got 24 in the house.
But I like his outlook. I'm listening to him, and as he said, if one person or 2 persons can have that negative impact, why not somebody try to have a positive
balance
impact?
on.
Yes.
It is such a mature thinking. How old are you now, Fitzroy?
I'm 18 years old.
At 18 to be thinking that way. When we were 18, I was interviewing Mr. Raymond Treasure, and he was just as brilliant, actually. so there is so much hope in our society. There's so much hope in our community, and both of you young men, embodying that. So tell me about the scholarship.
The scholarship,
that you're rejecting.
Actually, the name of the scholarship is the Global Leaderships Award to the University of Ontario, and I was accepted into their biological program to study my undergrad, and then I would go on to medicine. But as Mr. Treasure said, I'm turning it down. Rather, I deferred it.
Yes. While you try for?
Yale, and also because I'm insistent on taking my gap year.
Okay. So the gap year and Yale. So you'll come back just before you go off to Yale, please.
Okay.
Please see to it that you come back and tell us. We like to follow these things up. Okay. And you also, Kyle, before you go off to catering, please let us know.
I'll make sure.
We'd want to talk to you before you go. Mr. Treasure, your castle.
Yes.
Doing brilliantly. You had sixth form originally, then there was a break for sixth form. Sixth form is back.
We started in 2014 with about 15 subjects. First year was not exceptional. This year, though, I'm proud of what I'm seeing, and I know that we are going to move on to greater heights. In fact, we started out with about 80 students. Now I think we have about 200 this year. So we would be one of the leading sixth form schools right now in the region, although we are a new kid on the block, so to speak. But these students, based on what they are doing, Rodine is not here with us this morning. She's the Rose. She got 5 distinctions too. She's our head girl.
Yes.
But
congratulations, Rodine. Yes.
But they are doing very well. And it's not just from an academic point of view, because I believe in pushing the social side as well. My students, I think, should be leaders in the society, and that's why they speak in this way. I believe we should become a part of the transformation process here in Jamaica.
Yes.
And this is something that we say every day. They will tell you that our motto, so to speak,
after every devotion is up you mighty Yorkist, you can accomplish what you will. And that's exactly what they're doing, accomplishing what they will.
Wow. Oh my. Listen, I'm feeling so good this morning. Thank you so much. And it's an understatement to say I'm feeling good. I'm really hopeful, and I wish you all the best as you move out. I know you'll do great. You have been doing great. I know you'll do even greater and return to us. Thank you so much, Mr. Treasure.
And thanks for having us.
Anything else you want to say to Mr. Treasure, to people listening, young people listening, people who are going to be flooding your castle now?
Well, first let me just commend you for the work you're doing, because you're really doing some great work. I mean,
thank you.
We were listening this morning on our way down, so Fitzroy was saying if I listen to this program regularly. I said yes. I was explaining to him what it is all about. Right, yeah. But yes, I just want to encourage young people out there. You know, there's a view that the opportunities are scarce, but opportunities abound in Jamaica today. You know, it's just for people to search it out. Right. People like Fitzroy and Kyle, they search out opportunities, and that is why they can speak about the scholarships, because there are those who will claim that, boy, opportunities are not out there for young people to achieve their goals. They are out there. And it's really for them to search.
To search. I like that. I like that. Because from time to time we get young people here who have done so well and are seeking ways to get into university, but no scholarships.
Yes.
You're saying to some of those young people, search it out.
But here is Fitzroy turning one down.
Fitzroy.
And it's a lot of money.
I have enough people who can give it to you. Turning it down, I'm telling you.
Yes, he's currently doing his SAT. And that is how well he did it last year, but didn't push in the way he should. He's also a part of the AQuest program, and as you know, AQuest provides students with
very good program.
Yes.
All right, anybody you want to say hello to quickly before we go? Say hello to your parents at least.
Hello, mommy. Hello, Kamal, Nathania, Kazwade, everybody who is listening. You know, hello, big up to all of you.
And your castle.
Yes.
And your castle, of course. Yes.
Well, we say greetings to the Yorkist family.
To the Yorkist family.
Yes.
Well, I want to say greetings to my mother, Miss Florence Wickham, my sister Kimberly Wickham, my whole community of Orange Hill, big up yourself, my church, Brownson Baptist Church, your castle family, and to every listener out there. I can't name everyone, but
brilliant. You know, Kyle, you ever got to tell them your mommy name now and your daddy name and so on?
All right, so hello, mommy. That's Tamara Montague and my daddy, Earl McDonough.
Okay, because it fits right.
Yeah.
Your mommy going to say, you know, how you didn't
call my name.
Call
her name, yes.
Mr. Treasure, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the work that you are doing at York Castle High School. Good leadership, and thank you for other things. Thank you so much.
No problem. All the best.
Shamara, I laugh. All right, Mr. Raymond Treasure, we have to say it again. I have to say it again. Chandri, honorable. I've got to say it again that, you know, Mr. Raymond, brilliant work. Mr. Raymond Treasure, my very first interview. You know, see my first interview, Mr. Treasure. No, honest to goodness, I can't believe it. First interview. You have a tape? You know, if I would like that tape, you think you can find it? It's on the cassette player. But we must get find on cassette. Do we have cassette players somewhere? No, the young men wouldn't know. We must get find a cassette player. You don't know what a cassette player is, do you? You have one at your house?
Yes, it's not working.
Not working, okay. All right. We must go and find one. If you find a tape, Mr. Treasure, I'd like to put it onto something digital and rebroadcast it, right? But if you listen to it closer first, make sure it's you know, not untoward, not in there, like we're not shame ourselves. I don't think we were, though. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, we're all good. All right, Mr. Raymond Treasure, who is a principal of York Castle High School, along with two brilliant students.
I was just thinking when you spoke about Kennex earlier, one of the things I heard you talk about was the reluctance of some persons who know to share what they know. And the principal here said that opportunities exist, is just for you to find them, but sometimes it's just that persons don't share what they know.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at some of these, from day to day I see scholarships and I see other opportunities, and I'm wondering, where were these opportunities when I was going to school?
You know, I asked the same question. Look, I was having this conversation with my sister, who's now a teacher in England. We're looking back at our lives and what we knew and what we didn't know, and how information was withheld from us. So I went to St. Mary High School. I mean, that was a good enough school in St. Mary. It was a brilliant school. And when I was going there under Mr. Cargill, and then later Mr. Morris, and then later the other principal, but it really was a top school in St. Mary. Still is a very, very good school in St. Mary. But nobody told me about the student loan.
We didn't know anything about
I didn't know about the student loan. So everybody said they had student loan when we were going to school. And people were saying, yes, because I got student loan. But nobody told. I did not know. My parents did not know. There were also scholarships. I was an athlete, and people around me were getting track scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. And them times the track scholarships were, I remember me not come last, is it the first or second? Once in a while, third. But track scholarships now, it's almost like you had to know somebody who knows somebody to get a track scholarship. So that, there are elements of the society that have been excluded forever. But you just left school the other day. How come you never know these things?
Just left school the other day. I went to Oberlin High School. It has been a while. I'm not going to say how long, but I've looked back at how long I left and I realize I'm getting old.
Right, but
I went to Oberlin High School, and I didn't know about a lot of these opportunities. I remember one guy who got an opportunity to leave, but he was bought, quote unquote, bought by Calabar. Even when I was about to go into university. If anybody is listening and remember Mr. Davis' first name, he can tell me. There was this Mr. Davis who went to Oberlin, then he was working at UA at the time. And for some of us, if it had not been for Mr. Davis, we probably wouldn't even understand the application process, let alone how to access financial assistance to get to the, and not everybody was as fortunate as I am, or as I was, to be able to avoid student loans. But then I saw another problem. I don't think some of us read enough, and I think it was a problem then, and I think even with information now it is still a problem.
But and for me though, there was a lot of reading, because we were reading the newspapers, we were reading everything we could catch. We were not just reading, we were also writing. So we were voracious in terms of seeking knowledge. It just that in terms of our own development, the information wasn't shared. And even now, there are scholarships, and the Ministry of Youth under Lisa Hanna did some really good things to make this information available. I saw that, and I had to commend her for that. I thought to myself that, wow, this is what we should have been doing a long time ago in terms of ensuring that young people had access to information about how they can develop themselves and what they can do in terms of scholarships and so on. So that was brilliant. But I still think that we have this problem in Jamaica where there is a lack of access to information, a kind of exclusivity.
But all right. So on one hand, there are some persons who know but are not willing to share what they know. But I'm still going to say we don't read much, and this is how I'm going to say it. There's a section of the Gleaner, for example, that nobody reads. Most people go for 2 or 3 sections depending on what you want. You look at the section A, you look at the classifieds, and you look at careers, and that is it. And sometimes if you inspect the arts, you realize that that's where a lot of the opportunities come. And that's what I discovered when I was going to school. And so sometimes I go through it and I see scholarships and I see bursaries available, and I will send the information to other people because I know that they don't have it. So again, and then some of us, we have Facebook. We don't use it to our benefit. NCB from time to time puts out information about scholarships that are available. Courts does the same thing. But what are they using it for? You see, if you're not using it for your personal development, then you cannot blame anyone at the end of the day. But again, I will also agree with you again that some of what is known is not shared. I saw persons going off on the Shivning, I hope the pronunciation is correct, the Shivning Scholarship to the UK. Mm-hmm. Apart from the fact that Lime floods your phone with text about it, I'm not seeing much information. And who shares the information? I've seen so many come up. Who shares the info?
Yeah, because for that you have to go to the British High Commission website,
Right.
or one of the European Union member country websites, and even as a mature student in the UK in the last few years, I had in my class about 10 people from different places around the world, Indonesia, China, India, who were on that scholarship. And I was there in England studying on my own steam, and I didn't know about that scholarship. It's an interesting thing. I never know about that scholarship until I got to university and saw them visiting the people and giving them their monies, and I'm thinking, wow, I should have applied for that. But anyway, I think you're right. So share information, because I think one way or the other, we seem to be having this problem where there is not enough sharing of information, that everything is so exclusive that you have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And we should probably make it a feature in this program, and across area where look for the scholarship them and just name them out. So that at least, this is one area in which we're doing something to assist in helping to get that information out. But now with the internet, as you're saying, information is available. When you go on Facebook, look for it. When you go on the internet, go to the websites of the different embassies and look for the scholarships. Cuba has been giving scholarships forever. People know about that to some extent. Not everybody know what it entails and so on. Russia has been giving scholarships forever. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I know they did that for many, many moons. And there have been other scholarships in old Europe and new Europe. So just look for them and see how you can assist your own self in furthering your education.
When someone says something like, you don't seem like a black person or an Asian person or whatever, meaning that person defies the societal expectation of what that race should be, then that's actually really racist.
I may say I hate you. I hate white people. It's not going to change you getting that loan when you go to the bank.
Talking about this white privilege issue, I actually think it's quite racist. You're being prejudiced towards people based on the color of their skin, and I reject this idea that only white people can be racist.
Racism shows up for me differently.
Poverty never was the issue. If poverty had been the issue, why didn't you put those poor whites out there and the poor Indians picking cotton?
In prison, there's more black people. Is this just because they're black that they're in prison? Or could it be because they didn't want to work hard in school? They wanted it given to them.
The race hustlers blame white privilege, an unfair society, a terrible country. That is the big lie that is keeping some African Americans from reaching their full potential.
Racism does not exist. It is statistically irrelevant, aka zero.
Yefri Africa. Running Africa ni. Ahaya Jamaica. Sa wote kaka se boso kadia. Ewo IRE FM.
Hey, George Golding on Facebook as we welcome you back to the Africa Forum says, good morning, Combo, once again. Thank you for being you and for the tireless and commendable job that you're doing for this country and our race. Thank you, my brother. Please congratulate your two guests, your Castle young men. Prime example of what we as a nation are capable of when we simply believe and invest some time in our youths. He says, Mr. Treasure should be commended and should maybe teach some teachers what their responsibility as teachers are, providing social and academic leadership guidance to our young people. And Ras Dawid, thank you so much, my brother.
Hi again. Israel's police chief is being accused of racism following controversial comments about Israelis of Ethiopian descent as well as Arabs. Seems they were made at a legal conference in response to a question about alleged Israeli police brutality towards Ethiopian Jews. Ronnie Al-Sheikh said that when an officer meets a suspect from a group more linked to crime than they are, quote, naturally more suspicious. Here's words of infuriated then Israel's Ethiopian community. Here's our Mideast correspondent, Paula Sleer.
He added that this is backed up by studies on crime rates among immigrants across the world. Now, of course, he's being condemned by Israel's Ethiopian community as well as by some Israeli politicians. But the police came to his defense. They say that the remarks had no intention of offending Israelis of Ethiopian origin. They were said openly, this is the argument by the police, with the intention of correcting and improving the police force. Now, the issue comes on the background of ongoing complaints from Israeli Ethiopians of police racism and over-policing. Last year, you'll remember that after a police officer beat up an Ethiopian Israeli soldier unprovoked, violent protests started in various locations across the country. The police say that the police chief's comments were addressing exactly this, the problem of over-policing, and were aimed at trying to help solve this problem.
There are 130,000 people of Ethiopian descent living in Israel. They suffer from the highest poverty rate in the country and are more frequently stopped and searched by the police. In the 1990s, too, it was revealed, interesting fact here, that the Israeli National Blood Bank routinely destroyed blood donations from Ethiopians. And in 2009, Ethiopian children were denied admission to 3 Orthodox Jewish schools.
In focus now, the G20 summit opens today. It is attempting to bring back the spotlight on the global economy and strengthening trade ties in a climate that sees the international sphere huddle over security concerns. This year's summit is hosted by China in the southeastern city of Hangzhou, and many analysts have said that it is Beijing's chance to host one of the most significant gatherings of world leaders in its history. This is the first time China hosts this global meet, and it is only the second time that the G20 is hosted in Asia. What is the G20? The G20 was formed in 1999 as a forum for the governments and central bank of governors of 19 nations and the European Union to come together for economic cooperation and international financial stability. These countries include Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, the European Union, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, the Republic of Korea, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United States. In focus now, all the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are members of the G20. The first meeting of the G20 was held in 2009 in a bid to find measures to curb the negative effects of the global financial crisis. In focus now is who's attending this year. In addition to the heads of state from the G20, leaders from Chad, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Laos, Senegal, Singapore, Spain, and Thailand are invited to attend this year's summit in Hangzhou, China. On the agenda this year, the summit is operating under the theme of moving toward an innovative, invigorated, interconnected, and inclusive world economy. According to local Chinese media, Beijing is determined to steer the agenda away from contentious topics and instead to focus on the economy. However, it is expected that issues such as the South China Sea dispute or recent tensions between North and South Korea will arise. In focus now, the leaders gathered in Hangzhou are expected to push for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The security concerns in the Chinese city, as we said, has been raised to the highest level to ensure safety. More from CCTV's Lin Nan.
It's the best time of the year to see the lotus flowers in the West Lake. Visitors on Friday were busy making the most of it before its temporary closing for the next few days. The iconic landscape is serving as the host location for foreign leaders during the G20 summit in Hangzhou.
With the G20 summit due to begin on Sunday, the city of Hangzhou has upgraded security details to the highest level, which is a common practice of the international community.
More than 150 checkpoints have been set up around the city. Certain areas are closed entirely and traffic has been rerouted until the event ends. But locals and tourists seem to understand such measures are necessary for such a high-level gathering.
It will be the only chance in my life to see such an important meeting held in my city, and I don't feel the security detail has affected my life too much. I expect I'll be commuting a different way.
The summit represents China's image on the international stage. Of course, we have to ensure every participant's safety.
Some local police are wearing panda costumes to remind people about security details and give them something to smile about while waiting in security lines.
We know the heavy security will cause inconvenience to people. Wearing a panda costume is an easy way to get their support for the work we're doing. It's very hot inside, but I think it's worth doing.
Of course, everything will return to normal after the G20 summit ends, and all the closed areas will be open for locals and the tourists again. Lin Nan, CCTV, Hangzhou.
So in focus now, the G20 summit kicks off in the People's Republic of China. And as you heard in that report from Hangzhou, security at the highest level. There is some African presence in the city of Hangzhou. And Lynette Batty has more on this.
In less than 2 days, the G20 summit will kick off in the People's Republic of China in the eastern city of Hangzhou. The 19 leaders from the member countries plus the European Union have started arriving in the Asian country. African heads of state attending the summit include President Idris Deby of Chad, Egypt's Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President Macky Sall of Senegal, and South Africa's President Jacob Zuma. Some experts believe that African issues will also be high on the agenda in this year's meeting under its theme of working towards an innovative, invigorated, interconnected and inclusive world economy. Among key issues to be addressed include drought, famine, immigration, the slow economic growth and the fight against terrorism. Other experts believe that China, considered as a key partner for Africa, could also help in ensuring the continent is better represented in international forums. The G20 countries account for 85% of the world economy and 75% of world trade.
That report from Lena Bhatti. Also in focus now, Senegalese President Macky Sall, as you heard, has discussed Africa's future with the Chinese counterpart, his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, in prelude to the G20 summit holding in China. President Macky Sall is participating in the summit in his capacity as chairperson of NEPAD, Heads of State and Government Orientation Committee. During discussions, Xi Jinping said China is ready to keep promoting the resolutions of the China-Africa summit discussed in Johannesburg last year and expected to enable Africa to accomplish its self-development. The Chinese president promised investments in Africa estimated at $60 million. Beyond the multilateral issues, the situation of bilateral relations between Senegal and China were also discussed. President Macky Sall said Senegal appreciated the long-term support from China, while President Xi Jinping says China would like to enhance communication with Senegal in trade cooperation, security, and international affairs. In focus now, China's President Xi Jinping has also urged leaders of the world's 20 largest economies to avoid empty talk as they look to quicken economic growth. World leaders are at the annual economic summit, which is being hosted in China for the first time. President Xi Jinping said the global economy was recovering but faced multiple challenges in finance and trade. Also up for discussion are the global steel crisis, the UK's Brexit talks, and tax on multinationals like Apple. That's in focus now. The G20 summit underway in Hangzhou in China. I'm going to come back to this song. I really like Peter Tosh, and I'm playing all Peter Tosh this morning as we look to February. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running Africa, and my co-host this morning is Chandra Shaw, Honorable. Chandra, you were here last week, and you were also one of the models. And you notice that we've got your pictures all over.
I see them.
Yeah. That's the one we should put up this morning. Shama. We can put that up. All right. That was good, wasn't it? The fashion show.
Yes, extreme. I enjoyed it. I like Matamba. There is something about it.
Mm-hmm. True.
Me kind of feel bad. I'm not saying I like tears. As a matter of fact, The crochet, there's something about the crochet. I like the way her clothing fits.
You were both well. And believe me, if you go to our Facebook pages, you'll see what we're talking about. That these young people, they're not models. We only had one pulse model there. Everybody else were university students or teacher like you, or engage in other activities and other professions. You know, while we were there, the question came up about the exoneration of Morley Marcus Messiah Garvey. And one of the things I was saying to Bert Samuels was that I remember Senator Tom Tavares Finson here in the studio, because we had raised those questions here, talking about seeking exoneration for not just Marcus Garvey, but Baba Paul Bogle, Sam Sharp, and some of the martyrs of those wars. Because, you know, Chandra, they are still on the books as criminals. They're still on the books in Jamaica as criminals. I don't know if you recall, but the Jamaica Observer on Thursday, March 3, 2011, also picked up on the story, carried a story on it. We were discussing it here long before that. Professor Vereen Shepherd was discussing it herself, and also taking it to Parliament was Tom Tavares Finson. Going to talk about that in a little while. Okay, I'm going to leave you with it, Chandra, because I had to go get my fever grass tea. Okay. So, what you have in mind while I'm drinking to you?
Before, there are some other issues I had, but before I get to that, I just want to say hi to our teachers who get the students at below par and get them to excel. It's good that we focus on the students who are doing well, who are getting the 12 CXCs and the 10 and so on. But you know, there are some students who come in barely able to read and write properly, barely able to form sentences.
That's what Mr. Basco was saying last week, because, and this the thing is that's the thing with Taki High, because they do get the GSAT students who come in with lower grades. I don't like it when the teachers say, or the principals say, we don't get the best students. Because not every child is ready to learn at a certain age. But if you can move them. So I think it's good of you to highlight those schools. And we see a school like Taki, for example, that's considered one of those schools, doing brilliantly, as we showed last week with those two students who were here, and other students who are coming through Taki with that, as Mr. Basco was saying. But the point you're making on this, Chandra, is particularly what?
You see, although we know that our students learn in different ways, and there are some teachers who are quick to give up on these students and, you know, you're done, so you're not come to nothing. And then there are those teachers who will sit with them and will do their best. And these students come out with the threes, and we look at it because it's a 3, it isn't much. But when we look at where the students are coming from and where they're at, we also need to make them feel as if their efforts are appreciated and as though they have achieved. Because had they been left by the wayside, they probably would have become an additional nuisance to society. And so we also give thanks for those teachers. You know, we have to appreciate those teachers too, because their profession is not easy.
I do agree with you, and just big shout out to all the teachers who are not just going back to school, because you've been back in school from probably 2 weeks ago. Not only that, some teachers before, the admin staff, you know, the administration staff at a lot of the high school, well, at most schools.
Some seem like they never leave.
No, they don't. They're always there, so you can always call the school and get somebody. Think about that. You said you had some other issues, because I want to go
right.
to it.
All right. So I thought about, I encountered this sometime, I think it was this past week, perhaps, the issue of Parktown High School in Pretoria. They had a particular rule on the books governing how the girls should wear their natural hair. And I also remember that we had a similar issue in Barbados a bit before that. and we also had one in the Bahamas. And then inside of the United States, we had that issue at, I think it's Butler High School in Louisville, Kentucky, right? So,
and in the Navy also.
So, and I thought about, we had our own issue here because we had that issue with Casey, for example. And we still have that issue in most of our high schools. There is something that strikes me about these policies. It's like there is almost like a concerted effort to destroy any and everything that is essentially African among our population. And so the Chinese gets to come to school with his hair how he wants it. And the Indian the same, and the Jamaican white or wherever the whites come from the same. But our Africans are employed every day. You're forced there, sent home, you need to cut your hair. Why do we need to force
Or you need
them?
to straighten your hair.
Yes, we need to. I think we would have moved past that since the 1970s or so on, when you had to be of a certain color and your hair had to be of a certain texture for you to work in certain professions. If we're talking about, and you see, this is another thing where I think our students are not performing, not in terms of doing well on paper, but why we're not seeing the benefits past paper, because these students don't understand who they are. They have no identity. If you have no identity, you have nowhere to identify with. Then there is no way you're going to work towards development of anything, because you don't know where you belong. You have no roots.
And in South Africa, the good thing about the students is that they stood up against this.
Yes.
They demonstrated, these young students, you know, they literally took to the streets demonstrating for their right, protesting for their right to wear their natural hair. This is a shame in the so-called post-apartheid South Africa. But as you're pointing out, it's happening wherever we are.
Wherever we are, anything that is essentially African.
So we have to trade off our African identity to fit in.
But then, as somebody posted this the other day, I want to say good morning to Bensley Hype if he's listening. You know, his page is a source of information a lot of times. Somebody made a post about how you create a slave. I think it's the Willie Lynch laws or something. I don't remember the exact title, but it comes from Willie Lynch. And you see, there are some essential elements that if you remove that from the African, then you have control over them. And this is along with our language, this is one of the things they want to remove.
And I like the way you say along with our language, because go beyond patois, or Creole, whatever you want to call it, to our mother tongue, to our African tongues, which we have lost. I changed my name from Andrea to Carbo by deed poll. Now, Andrea is Andrea, is 6 letters. Carbo is 4, Kabu. And there's so many persons who refuse to say that. They tell me they can't pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear them pronouncing all kinds of Shindara and Shandapal.
I know, right?
And yet you can't pronounce a 4-letter word. I mean, so it is the extent to which the mental control has damaged us. You talk about the chains that broken but not come off, and so on. So it's all part of this psychic trauma. Once we have recognized this, though, it is how then do we begin to walk it back, to deprogram, to break that cycle.
Listen, I saw some of these issues. The first issue that reminded me of what I'm about to say was the issue of removing AFRIKAN from South Africa. I'm trying to remember, was it you who played a clip of a young girl who gave a speech, right? And I was searching for that clip to play it for some students. I couldn't find it.
Excuse me, there you are now on the social media with your midriff bear in Mutombo, looking really good. So we just posted on social media. It's on my Twitter page. It's on my Facebook page. It is also on the IRFM Twitter page. There you go. Go ahead. That's okay.
So there is this move to get rid of Afrikaans. They're supposed to speak
Afrikaans, Afrikaans.
There's another name. I'm missing the name because I read it a while back. It's like the original tongue. They don't want you to speak.
Yeah, they don't want you to speak. And there are many. There's Xhosa and many other languages, but it's indigenous languages that they want to take out of South African universities and to have South African speaking only, they're the language of a colonizer.
Right.
Which, and you're referring to the young lady who spoke out against that, who succeeded and decided to come back and talk to the university at her graduation to say, listen, this is damaging, to us as Africans. But I don't think we can wait on the colonizers to give us anything.
No, but why would you wait on the person who took everything from you to return it to you? It's like a thief steals a car and you're waiting for him to just bring it back to you again. It doesn't make any sense.
I want to go quickly to Senator Tom Tavares Finson, and we called him for an update. Basically what it was, and the Minister Babsy Granger at the time in 2011, she was also seeking to bring a motion before Parliament seeking consensus to have the names of several of the country's national heroes struck from the court records. The issue is with this is that a lot of our heroes, their names are still in the court records as criminals, and so there was a call to expunge the convictions of the national heroes, Sam Sharp, George William Gordon, Paul Bogle, and Marcus Garvey, their followers and non-participants who were considered rebels against the crown and were ultimately convicted of crimes against the crown following the 1831 Christmas Rebellion, the 1865 Morant Bay War, the 1831 Emancipation War, and the 1929 campaign of the People's Political Party, respectively. Now, we were blogging about this 3 years ago because I actually went to Google it and found that most of the information about this came from my own blog on Tumblr. We had also posted at the time the call and act to expunge the convictions of the national heroes. It says, whereas there are many Jamaicans who have fought against slavery and inequality and thus contributed to the development of Jamaica and her people, and whereas these Jamaicans were led by several notable persons who have since been recognized as instrumental to Jamaica's development and been given the national honor of being national heroes of Jamaica, and whereas in their fight for freedom and equality, several of these national heroes and their unsung followers were labeled as rebels, arrested and tried and convicted of crimes against the crown, and whereas these national heroes are Sam Sharp, George William Gordon, Paul Bogle, and Marcus Garvey, and act to expunge the convictions of the national heroes. Now, one of the reasons why we are getting back to that, it also continues, and whereas there were several men and women who followed their leadership in the 1831 Emancipation War, the 1865 Morant Bay Rebellion, and the 1929 campaign of the People's Political Party, and whereas there were also persons who did not participate in these activities but were labeled rebels by association, being of similar race, class, or socio-economic background of the national heroes and their followers, and whereas it is desirable to grant a statutory expungement to all these persons. And it continues. We're pointing to this because there are calls now on the U.S. President, Barack Obama, to pardon Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Now, I think that this is hypocritical coming from Jamaica. Unless Jamaica first expunge the criminal records of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle, and others of the wars that we named, unless we first do that, we have no moral authority to ask Barack Obama to pardon, and the word that is being used is pardon. Do not agree with that word. To pardon Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Let us do what we are calling on the United States to do. Let us do that before we ask America to do anything. Expunge the criminal records. Expunge the convictions of these national heroes: Marcus Garvey, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle.
And this is why Emancipation Day, for example, I mean, for some of us who don't quite understand, this is why although it carries significance, on the other hand, it seems not to carry any. Because, this country, which is predominantly African, we're celebrating persons who supposedly fought for our freedom. But those in power now who took over the seats of the colonizers are still looking at these heroes through the lenses of the colonizers. And so you don't even recognize them as your own people. So that's and that's why I heard persons say over both holidays, in the emancipation and independence, that they just see these 2 days as days to just stay home and rest, or who isn't going back to work the following day just use the time to party, because there is no significance. And the time that they remove.
And our private sector has complicated the matter by now putting on these days, Emancipation Day in particular, some of the most serious drunken filled parties, alcohol geared at our young people, so that there's 2 or 3 generations of Jamaican young people who think Emancipation Day means get drunk, take off my clothes, go off naked and party till me drop.
But if you keep Tom drunk, you can block him consciousness completely.
But Tom drunk, but Tom no fool.
And that's what they need to understand.
You
Not
know?
all of us are looking that way. And so that is why the onus is on us, which there are so many thoughts running in here. The onus is on us as educators to ensure that our children know the true stories. But then again, so many of us are afraid. And I always ask them the question, if our heroes were afraid, where would it be now? We would still be on the plantation cutting cane or whatever the crop would be now. So many of us are afraid.
And that is the point. Princess K Radio, at Princess K Radio on Twitter, is saying, when I wear corporate and wear my natural hair, they say they are going to comb it. When I wear weave, I get compliments.
Yes, man.
So it is what it is. But Chandra, we've been asking questions. Remember when the former UK Prime Minister came, David Cameron, he announced a 300 million fund for Caribbean infrastructure, 300 million pound for the Caribbean for infrastructure development. And he also came bearing prisons and lots of uproar at the time. Now, the question we're asking is, what happened to that promise of the 300 million for the Caribbean? I have, and I quickly want, you might only be able to carry one of the presenters on this, Dr. Warren Smith, president of a Caribbean Development Bank, because a few things has happened since that announcement was made. So let us listen to the president, Dr. Warren Smith, who spoke on March 14, 2016, on the UK CIF, United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, as it was being launched in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let's go to that.
I am pleased to be participating in this function marking the commencement of the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund. It was in September 2015 when UK Prime Minister David Cameron visited Jamaica and announced to the Parliament for the first time his government's decision to provide a grant of £300 million to set up the UK CIF, through which ODA-eligible Caribbean countries would be able to access finance for infrastructure development, and also for him to appoint the Caribbean Development Bank as the manager of this fund. Needless to say, it was one of the greatest moments in my life. Importantly, by targeting infrastructure development, £300 million would significantly expand the opportunities for economic growth in the eligible economies in the Caribbean. £300 million would, of course, not close the huge infrastructure gap that Caribbean countries face, but in my view, it would certainly make a noticeable dent in that gap. It is widely known that infrastructure investments have a strong impact on growth and economic and social progress. Improved transportation systems and safer roads have the potential to raise school attendance. Better roads and telecommunication facilities can raise labor productivity, shore up rural incomes, thereby reducing poverty. Also, Enhanced access to electricity lengthens the time available to study and raises female employment, thereby increasing overall productivity. All of these will redound to the benefit of all borrowing member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a whirlwind period for staff of both DFID and CDB charged with operationalizing the fund. Since that historic announcement less than 6 months ago, DFID and CDB signed the Memorandum of Understanding on February 8, 2016. And I'm pleased to announce that CDB's Board of Directors ratified that agreement at its meeting yesterday, for those of you who might not have been there. We have already launched the fund in Antigua and Barbuda and also in Dominica. And our plan is to complete the launches in all of the 9 beneficiary countries by mid-April. So here we are today, marking the commencement of UK SIF. We have good reason to be in a celebratory mood. The UK SIF, no doubt, is a huge addition to the pool of concessionary resources available to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Based on the formula agreed for allocating the funds, you are eligible to receive, Minister Gonzalez, grants totaling approximately $41.4 million based on today's exchange rate. I suspect, sir, that you can do a lot of damage with that 41.4 million US dollars. And I know you have it planned out already. I must give full credit to the small core of staff of DFID Caribbean and CDB who collaborated on putting the operational machinery in place so quickly. They have truly demonstrated that partnerships can and do work. But we must get right back to work tomorrow to make sure that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and indeed all of the beneficiary countries, do access these resources on a timely basis and that they utilize the funds well. DFID and CDB teams plan to visit each beneficiary country to meet with and familiarize local officials with the requirements for access. To date, we have visited Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica, and we met with officials right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines only yesterday. Our next stops this month are Belize and Guyana. Minister Jordan, I hope you'll be there, sir. Oh, he's outside. Okay. Oh, right here. We will complete the list with visits to Grenada, to Jamaica, to Montserrat and St. Lucia in April. I am pleased that beneficiary countries are proactively preparing the list of priority projects that they wish to be funded with the UK SIF resources. Based on visits by technical staff from CDB to both Antigua and Barbuda and to Dominica, we are currently preparing 1 capital project and 2 technical assistance projects for consideration. In-house, we are in the process of recruiting additional staff to increase the capacity of the bank in order to implement the UK SIF efficiently. At CDB, we are committed to the successful implementation of the UK SIF, and we will continue to work with DFID and our country partners to execute the program within the 4-year timeline. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
All right, why is this important? This is important because the fund was also tied for Jamaica, or so it appeared to us, to the prison deal. And we know that just before that, we heard that they were going to come into Jamaica before April, right? Mm-hmm. And just before that, or just around that time, the newly appointed Minister of National Security, Robert Montague, met with officials at the British High Commission to discuss the controversial prison transfer deal between Jamaica and the United Kingdom. I'm going to quickly, the Gleaner interviewed him about that. And remember, they were opposition at the time when David Cameron came. They were very vocal against that Trojan horse from David Cameron. But in March, this is what we heard from Minister then the newly appointed Minister of National Security, Robert Montague, in an interview with the Gleaner.
The JLP policy position, we have always maintained that our inmates must be held under humane conditions. They must be rehabilitated, not turned into hardened criminals, and they must contribute to their upkeep.
But Minister, what position would you go to that meeting with? Wouldn't you go there with a position, a GOJ position?
Yes.
And what's that position?
And when we meet with the British, we will have those discussions, and then you will know thereafter.
Well, I don't know if you know thereafter. We've been trying to get Minister Montague to ask him what's the latest on this. We have not been able to get him. We tried to get the Minister of Finance to ask him what is happening with this. Also Favour Williams, and we're not getting any of them. Funny enough, we tried to call, all of Friday we were trying to get the Minister of Finance, Audley Shaw. And I was actually at the Canex in Montego Bay at the convention center. So here we are. Shamara is here trying to get him. I am down at Canex trying to get him, and nobody can get him because you're just not getting him. And then the organizer of Canex, or the I think it was the principal from Timeless Herbal Care, Betty, who actually came up and said, well, we have a text here from the Minister of Finance who wanted to be here, but he's not here. And he read that text. So I called Shamara and I said, well, him just text. So that means him are using phone. So try again. And we still weren't able to get him. So Shamara, did we get anybody at all? Did anybody tell us anything at all? All right. It is time for the bottom line. The question before the bottom line, though. Did Jamaica access that fund already?
We haven't heard anything, so we don't even know if we've accessed it. We have not heard anything so far.
If we access it, since they came in April, is it tied to the prison?
We need answers to those, but we haven't heard anything. The last we heard was a meeting was going to be held, and that was kept so low key because, as you said, they were so outspoken against it.
That's right. So the question is, did we access the fund? And I think we did. How much did we access? St. Vincent and the Grenadines get 44 and odd million, right? How much did Jamaica access? What did we use it to do, or what are we using it to do? It gone somewhere like, anyway, we left that. Okay, so tell us, please, because we're trying to find out, and this should be public information, but I wasn't able to find it anyway. I found much of the information from the UK websites, all of what I have here coming from the UK, and some of it from the Caribbean Development Bank, but nothing from Jamaica to say whether or not we access the fund, nothing to say what happened at the meeting with Bobby Montague and the British, nothing to say if we access the fund, it's tied to the prison, nothing to tell us what is the case now of the UK-Jamaica, what's the status of a UK-Jamaica prisoner transfer deal. It is time for the bottom line, and it has nothing to do with this. But we're throwing those questions out, and we hope to get some answers by next week.
Crumbling roads and bridges and airports will be replaced with the infrastructure our country needs and deserves. Our infrastructure is going to hell. Frankly, I hate to say it, our country is going to hell, and we're not going to let it happen. More than 2,800 people have been shot in Chicago since just the beginning of the year. You look at war-torn countries are safer than living in our inner cities by a lot. It's not even close. It breaks everybody's heart. We cannot let this violence continue. We can't let it happen.
Now, the search engine giant Google is again being accused of favoritism towards US presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton, and in particular hiding growing concerns about her health. With more on this, here's RT's Caleb Moppet.
Ever since this video emerged, questions about Clinton's health have been raised across the United States.
Some have said it's like a mini seizure. What does it look like to you?
It looks to me, I'm also concerned about this concussion she had in 2012. It could be a post-concussion syndrome. You know, your balance is off, you're dizzy all the time, your memory is off, you're not thinking clearly.
The picture that you showed as she's going up the stairs speaks a million words. So is she really fatigued? Is she dehydrated?
This has become one of their themes. Here, you take my pulse while I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Make sure I'm alive.
Oh my God, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
But look what happens when I type Hillary Clinton's health into Google. According to their auto search feature, it's not an issue. Yet look what happens in other search engines. Now, we asked Google why this was, and they told us that their auto search feature is specifically edited to avoid disparaging and offensive content. It wasn't exactly clear what's considered disparaging or offensive about Hillary Clinton's health, though it is interesting to note that Eric Schmidt, one of the former CEOs of Google and a top stockholder in the corporation, is also a prominent supporter of Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Secretary Clinton, welcome back to Google.
It's great to be here, Eric. Thank you. You've grown a little bit since I've been here last. Just a little.
Are you talking about my weight?
When she was Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton was calling out foreign governments for trying to control cyberspace.
They've expunged words, names, and phrases from search engine results. Countries that restrict free access to information risk walling themselves off from the progress of the next century.
But even in the land of the free, details continue to emerge showing that the way information is made accessible on the internet is not random, but intentionally manipulated. Whether it's the news curators who decide what gets trending on Facebook, or big corporations hiring teams of people to edit Wikipedia, the internet isn't a free market of ideas where everything gets an equal shot at going viral.
This is influencing U.S. elections, influencing who's going to run the country. So I think there has to be a little bit more transparency and people realizing and understanding the power that Google, Twitter, Facebook, all these very powerful online entities have in controlling information flow. They might actually have some political leanings that are making their information flow online biased.
If the influential people on the internet are all lining up behind one person and controlling what information we receive, does this mean that democracy has, for the lack of a better term, been hacked? Caleb Maupin, RT, Washington, D.C.
The news, and Apple has announced that it will appeal the European Commission's ruling that the company owes 13 billion euros in backdated taxes, and now the UK has opened the door for Apple to invest its business in post-Brexit Britain. For more on this, we're joined by RT's Laura Smith, who's covering the story for us in London. Good morning to you, Laura. I suppose some would argue it's good opportunism by the UK, this.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, there certainly has been an angry reaction from Apple to the EU Commission's ruling. And you can understand why. You know, they thought that they had struck a beneficial tax deal with the Irish government. And now the European Commission steps in and says that it's illegal to the tune of 13 billion euros. Tim Cook, the chief executive of Apple, has accused the EU of trying to rewrite history. He says that the ruling could have a profound and harmful effect on investment and job creation in Europe. And it's also left a bad taste in the mouth of the US government. The Treasury Department said that the ruling could damage the important spirit of economic partnership between the US and the EU. As you say, though, if not the EU, where could Apple go? Britain has not been backwards in coming forwards. Theresa May's spokesperson was asked whether Britain would welcome Apple's investment, and they said that they pointed out that Britain's corporation tax is one of the lowest in the world, trotted out this phrase that they use a lot, Britain is open for business, and said that the UK would welcome any company that wanted to invest in it. As for the bones of this ruling, well, the EU Commission looked at this sweetheart tax deal that Apple had agreed with the Irish tax authorities, and they said, they concluded after looking at 3 years of records that it amounts to illegal state aid, illegal under EU law, of course. Corporation tax across the board is 12.5% in Ireland. Apple was paying just 0.005% in 2014, so that equates to £50 for every £1 million in profit. This whole row, though, of course, is music to the ears of those who advocated Britain leaving the EU. After Brexit, Britain will, on paper, be able to create its own financial environment, distinguish itself as an investment destination, make its own rules, cut its own tax deals in theory. And Theresa May's comments suggest that she sees the opportunity in providing essentially a haven for companies who've fallen out of love with EU regulations.
OK, thanks, Laura. That was RT's Laura Smith there from London. Thank you.
The bottom line of literacy, learning and education. The bottom line is that within any society, literacy and education are essential elements of growth and development. One cannot function without the other, and both must be combined with learning if sustainable development is to take place. But this will only work if the institutions responsible for carrying out these functions do so for the good of the entire society and not just a select few. However, the truth is that educational institutions within the Caribbean have failed significantly in this aspect. While we're busy celebrating the successes of our children in their various external exams, we fail to recognize that Caribbean schools have successfully created puppets within a system of conformity. Educational institutions serve to maintain the status quo and reinforce social control. The result then is that each year we celebrate successes in CSEC and CAPE exams, while these successes are not reflected in Caribbean development. The various syllabi gear the populace toward preparation for employment instead of production, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Consequently, the Caribbean becomes a consumer and service society with no real foundation on which to foster development. Why? Because although Caribbean nations have achieved literacy, the learning and education that occurs within the walls of our learning institutions do not encourage development. Our institutions encourage growth through foreign investment, loans, and foreign aid. As a result, no real improvement takes place within Caribbean society. Development is hindered, and our educated and skilled people seek opportunities overseas. This leads to further underdevelopment, since brain drain means less developmental projects for us, by us. The bottom line is that while our leaders and parents boast about our CAPE and CSEC passes, development will not take place if we continue to lose our achievers and educators to foreign countries. Caribbean leaders are yet to learn that unless they create a suitable backdrop for citizens to be creative and innovative, the region will experience very little more than good exam passes and sporadic instances of growth. Unless this backdrop is created, governments can continue to give speeches about growth in GDP and GNP. However, the majority of the population will still struggle to understand the meanings of these terms and to experience the associated benefits. The bottom line is that we have too many educated leaders who have failed to learn from the mistakes of their predecessors. The educated few feel themselves too proud to take hints from those who have achieved some amount of success without much formal education. These individuals have built successful entities using basic literacy and learning, limited only by a restrictive bureaucracy. Until the value of those experiences are recognized, we will keep repeating the mistakes and plunge further into underdevelopment. The Caribbean needs its skilled personnel and scholars to build from within instead of depending on foreign entities. The bottom line is that until this is done, our society will only learn to seek employment. And when these opportunities don't present themselves locally, skills and expertise that could be beneficial to the Caribbean will be transferred to metropolitan territories. Hence, the Caribbean will continue to experience the cycle of poverty and dependency. Therefore, while we celebrate increased literacy, exam passes, and access to education, we must remind our leaders that a combination of literacy, learning, and education is vital to our own survival and development. And that is the bottom line.
Thank you so much, my sister. Thank you so much. Very engaging bottom line and well said. I know that this has been a concern of yours raised here in the bottom line in the Africa Forum, and it really does make a lot of sense in terms of how we go forward, what we celebrate, and while it is important to celebrate, but to move that to the next level, decolonizing the mind, literally deprogramming the mind, breaking that cycle of mental control. Thank you so much, my sister. We're inviting our very special guests to come in for the month of September. They write and present the bottom line for the month. Next week, the bottom line will be presented, written and presented by the principal of the Belmont Academy in Westmoreland, Mr. Ryan Simpson. Plus now it says, commenting on the Chinese situation, in most politicians of the world, you'll find some Chinese cash, talking about the kickback, a China kickback. Full Circle Music says, beautiful program, very informing, but when you pass 19, mama, I'm gonna pass it yet, Full Circle. Kimathi Nkrumah Abiku was giving us a name for the author of the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson. You know, sometimes names just slip you at the moment you're supposed to remember. Yes. That's what happened to both of us. But Carter G. Woodson, we did get that. Thank you so much. On Facebook still, and Rasdawi, thank you for that, because I was trying to remember the name of the African who actually created the computer language, opened the internet more or less, and it's Philip Emeagwali, a Nigerian. So we do not need Mark Zuckerberg to go to Nigeria to tell us about computers or the internet. We should be doing our own versions. We are, after all, the creators.
Exactly.
Dudley Sudlow says this ganja hijacking by so-called rich people and government is definitely going to spark a revolution war. At least that's what should happen. Over to you.
I was just looking at someone on social media saying that if we are looking to the US to expunge Marcus Garvey first, it's like we're seeking permission to do that same thing here.
And it is permission, and it goes back to WikiLeaks. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from today, is to go do some research and go to WikiLeaks, type in UK Jamaica relations, Jamaica US relations, and read about how America reports on how our ministers of government interact with them. You're going to be ashamed, but at least your eyes will be opened to what the real situation is. Check out the real situation. This is how we're wrapping.
So, yeah, towards the end of the program, we spoke about learning and literacy. And I just want to leave something with our people. Dr. Johnson spoke about education in his speech, and this isn't something unique to him, but he said, if we're going to depend on the persons who have enslaved our children and have psychologically traumatized them for ages, if we are going to depend on those persons to teach our children what they should know, then, we really aren't doing it ourselves any good. And that is so true.
That is true. And it is the very same thing for the church. It's the very same thing for our gods.
Rehabilitate people and...
Thanks. No jail time for a Vandergrift man accused of acting as a real-life vampire. Police say he sexually abused a teenager and made other young girls drink his blood. But Jonathan Davis was sentenced to probation. Our Melanie Gillespie was in the courtroom for the sentencing. And Melanie, he's blaming all this on an internet game?
David, yeah, we found out today this isn't his first sexual assault offense. We found out that he actually fathered a child to a 12-year-old girl when he was just 17 years old. But the judge told him today in his sentencing that he's a grown-up now and he needs to start acting like one.
A 22-year-old Vandergrift man is avoiding jail time after police say he had sex with a 14-year-old girl in a stairwell of this church. He was 20 at the time. Jonathan Davis was sentenced today. He was also convicted of slicing the wrists of 3 juveniles and drinking their blood. A judge sentenced him to 10 years of supervised probation, 2 years of house arrest, and is requiring him to register as a sex offender for the next 25 years.
He's on a right path at this point, and I think that's the most important thing with our system, to show that we can rehabilitate people and in the meantime keep the community safe.
Police say Davis orchestrated a cult-like group involving 3 juveniles and several adults in Vandergrift in the fall of 2014. He told police after licking each other's blood, he would call them his bio child and he would be their dad. The role play was based off of an online fantasy game. Since being charged, his attorney says he's been receiving counseling and hopes the sex offender type treatment works to his advantage.
Apparently he's really into computers from the sense of programming and whatnot, so hopefully he can go down that path and really start to take advantage of the positive changes that is making in his life.
The judge also told Davis he can't use the internet unless it's for a job or career search or educational purposes. He also told him he can't have any contact with minors unless it is his 5-year-old son. The judge said if he relapses or doesn't follow these rules, he could face some serious jail time. Reporting live in Westmoreland County, I'm Melanie Gillespie, Channel 11 News.
All night long. I said, bless my soul. I don't know what is wrong with
me. Also this morning, we have some questions to ask. Questions relating to the announcement by former British Prime Minister David Cameron, £300 million fund for Caribbean infrastructure. Remember that announcement in September? When was it? The United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, that was launched, and it came after that announcement by David Cameron. The questions we're asking include whether or not Jamaica has accessed the funds. We're asking questions also about that meeting that the Minister of National Security had with the British High Commission agents here in Jamaica regarding that contentious prison deal, UK-Jamaica prisoner transfer deal. We're asking questions publicly because we've been trying to get the Minister of Finance, and you know there are many people in the Finance Ministry now, we can't get any of them. We also try to get the Minister of National Security, not able to do so. So we're just going to go ahead and ask the questions. Look back at that announcement by David Cameron. Look at what has happened, because it was a Caribbean fund, remember, that was announced. Look at what has happened in other Caribbean countries regarding the fund. And then also to ask, to look also at what the Caribbean Development Bank has said about the Jamaica situation, and to ask whether or not Jamaica has drawn down, has accessed the funds, and what does this mean? Is it tied to the contentious prison deal? Why is there so much silence around the fund? All right, so we have those questions. We're going to hear from Dr. Warren Smith, who is the president of at the time, president of a Caribbean Development Bank, then at the launch of the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, that's UKCIF, fund that was launched in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on March 10, 2016. His presentation then. Also speaking then was Colleen Wainwright, head of DFID in the Caribbean. We want to hear what she said. And speaking there also was Winston Jordan, who Minister of Finance Guyana, just to kind of give ourselves an idea, or to orient ourselves as to where we are in the bigger scheme of things, and why there is so much silence around this £300 million grant or fund from the UK to the Caribbean countries, and the extent to which these funds are connected or not to that contentious UK-Jamaica prisoner transfer deal and the prison that David Cameron brought to Jamaica instead of reparations.
A Franklin woman is suing Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark and 4 deputies, accusing them of false arrest and much more. This is the latest development in a Fox 6 investigation that really got national attention.
Yeah, Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson has been trying for months to get answers from the sheriff. Tonight, right now, you're going to see what happened when he finally caught up with him.
Brian Polson, Fox 6. Could I have just a minute to talk to you?
No, not really.
I'd like to talk to you about Deputy Joseph Keelis.
Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark has never been shy about speaking his mind in front of a television camera, until now.
Could you give me just a minute, Sheriff? No. There's a lot of people who have questions.
I'm here to help seniors celebrate their day here, okay?
I understand.
It's an appropriate process for that. It's to go through my public information office. We tried that 5 times, in fact, since February 28th. The 5th time the public information officer wrote, the sheriff will not be doing an interview, without explaining why. She has responded. She may have not responded in the way that you liked it, but she did respond, okay?
Is there a reason that you don't want to talk about that incident?
The incident in question is a 2013 traffic crash outside Mitchell Airport. Deputy Joseph Keelis was on routine patrol when he rolled a stop sign and T-boned another driver. Tanya Weicker suffered a broken neck, but that's not all. Keelis' fellow deputies then arrested her for drunk driving, even though tests would later prove she was stone cold sober.
Ms. Weicker's constitutional rights were violated rather severely.
On Monday, Weicker stood next to Chicago attorney John Erickson as he announced the filing of a federal civil rights lawsuit against Deputy Keelis, 3 other deputies and supervisors, and Sheriff Clark.
The sheriff is responsible.
The lawsuit comes 2 months after our investigation showed Deputy Keelis blamed Weicker for the crash, then later changed his story.
Nothing further to say, sir.
Weicker admitted to having a few sips of a friend's drink that night, nothing more, but her injuries were too severe to perform field sobriety tests. Deputy Scott Griffin arrested her anyway and cited her for driving drunk.
I explained to him that my eyes are only red and glassy because I was crying.
Erickson says his client was treated like a criminal as she laid in a hospital bed in pain.
Had to ask for permission to use the washroom in front of a deputy that was keeping watch on her.
Video from an airport surveillance camera eventually proved that Deputy Keelis never stopped before turning onto Howell Avenue as he claimed in his report. The sheriff's office knew about the video 2 days after the crash, but the drunk driving case continued for 10 months before a prosecutor finally declined to file formal charges.
A video that exonerated Miss Weicker was sat on for months and months until the good work of Fox 6.
The lawsuit filed in federal court Monday accuses Sheriff Clark, Deputy Keelis, and 3 other deputies of engaging in a cover-up of Deputy Keelis's role in the crash, and it accuses the sheriff of having a de facto policy of concealing and suppressing officer misconduct through what the lawsuit terms a code of silence. After giving the sheriff months to sit down for an interview, we finally had no choice but to approach him at Serb Hall last month during Senior Fest.
Look, there's a courtesy that goes along with being a reporter. There's a professionalism. Apparently you don't get it. Okay? This is an event to honor seniors. And that's why I'm here today, to give them their respect.
I understand, and I wanted to sit down. Once again, I asked multiple times for a sit-down interview.
I can walk away now if we could sit down and do an interview. As we always have.
How you doing?
Hi.
How you doing?
Once again, the sheriff declined.
But I just want to know if you believe the arrest of Tanya Weicker was appropriate under the circumstances.
He doesn't have to answer our questions, but he may have to answer the allegations now facing him in federal court.
When there's a bad apple or a bad administration, the light needs to be shined upon it, and they need to be called to answer for their conduct.
Brian Polson, Fox 6 Investigators.
They've been down there 4 years, and all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first, and they put you last, because you're a chump. A political chump.
All right. Welcome to Redacted Tonight. I'm Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. We've got more leaks for you. The Democratic Party continues to leak more than an incontinent grandpa being tickled during an Adam McKay flick. Am I right? Am I right? Guccifer. Guys got upset about that one. Guccifer 2.0 released emails from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, or DCCC, instructing staffers on how to deal with Black Lives Matter activists. The memo called Black Lives Matter a radical movement to end anti-black racism. And they even put the words anti-black racism in quotation marks, as if they're not sure if it's really a thing, you know. This racism that the kids are talking about, I haven't heard about it, but they call it racism, and I don't think it's really a thing, but it's only really the Negroes talking about it. Then, for tactics on how to deal with these people, the memo, which apparently came from Nancy Pelosi's computer, the memo said, number 1, listen to their concerns, which you can read that as smile blankly and pretend you aren't actually thinking about what to get your mistress for her birthday. You know? Next tactic, don't offer support for concrete policy positions. Think about that. You have millions of people around the country demanding black men and women not be killed, harassed, and arrested by police. You have a representative democracy in which each representative is supposed to think for themselves, to have their own view of right and wrong, to represent their constituents, but behind closed doors, they're being told as a group to avoid showing any support for policies that would help address systemic racism. This memo honestly, it might as well just say, step 1, act like you give a fuck. Step 2, do not give a fuck. Step 3, see step 1. Once you've practiced this technique for a couple of years, representing the people will be easy peasy. Now, of course, this leak is either being ignored by our media or spun in so many different ways it would make Brian Boitano dizzy. But at the heart of it, this is everything that's wrong with our government. Instructions on how to staple on a sympathetic face while simultaneously not doing anything. Welcome back to Redacted Tonight. You might have heard, of course, that the head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, stepped down a few weeks ago after emails were leaked showing she and many others in the DNC were actively helping Hillary Clinton win the primary. This is a violation of DNC rules and possibly also illegal. There's currently a lawsuit going forward in Florida about just that. But don't worry. Debbie Wasserman Schultz won her primary against Tim Canova, and she was immediately hired by the Clinton campaign as well. Other recently revealed emails show that donors to the Clinton Foundation were often expecting favors in return, such as meetings and, weapon systems. Well, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's replacement at the DNC, the head of the DNC, Donna Brazile, was on ABC recently and said some incredible things.
I've been a government official. So, this notion that somehow or another, someone who is a supporter, someone who's a donor, somebody who's an activist saying, I want access, I want to come into a room and I want to meet people, we often criminalize behavior that is normal, and I don't see what the smoke is.
You don't see what the smoke is? You don't know what the problem... Everything is the problem. What you're describing is legalized, or sometimes even illegal, bribery. What do you mean you don't see what the smoke is? Here's some money, give me access, give me a position, give me an amendment on to a bill. That's the definition of a corrupt system. It's also the definition of an oligarchy, because people without a lot of money are not able to get the government to respond to them. You don't see what the problem is? Great move, DNC. After several of your higher-ups have just stepped down for corruption, you put in their place someone whose overarching principle, as she just said, seems to be corruption is... It's normal. Everyone does it. Maybe that should have been the first question when you were interviewing Donna Brazile for this position. Do you think corruption is just like awesome? Is that something you think? This whole reboot of the DNC's image is going worse than this summer's reboot of Ben-Hur. All right, let's see some more.
Back in 2001 and 2002, people forget that Bill Clinton went to Harlem and set this foundation up. They've helped millions of people across the globe and here in America. I think they've shown over and over again that they're willing to be transparent and that they have gone beyond the letter of the law to show that they're trying to make sure that there are bright red, green, purple lines that will separate them from any type of conflict.
Oh, Donna, you seem to have accidentally said the opposite of what's really true. Listen, happens to the best of us. They've gone above and beyond to make sure everything is transparent. Donna, the Clintons have 5 shell companies. The reason we're even talking about these emails is because Hillary created her own servers in order to avoid Freedom of Information requests. Transparent. Many of these emails were deleted but recovered because she was trying to cover them up. Hillary likely tried to wipe the entire server. So what the f*** are you talking about? The Clinton Foundation has largely been a giant money laundering scheme, and now we're seeing that countries who got massive weapons systems had paid the foundation millions of dollars. You're staring into a pile of shit and calling it ice cream.
Back to those DNC emails, what is your concern here? Julian Assange has said there will be significant releases over the coming weeks, coming months. What are you most concerned about there? We're victims of, the DNC and other institutions are victims of a cybercrime led by thugs. We know from the company that we hired, CrowdStrike, that there was Russian involvement in this to destabilize not just our institution, the Democratic Party, but our democracy itself.
So let me get this straight. The totally true information that WikiLeaks has put out that shows the DNC to be fully corrupt as well as stealing the election from Bernie Sanders, that information doesn't matter because it came from thugs like Julian Assange, the guy the UN has said is being illegally detained. Even if we agreed he's a thug, which I don't, you do realize that if a thug hands you proof that your husband is cheating on you, it doesn't mean your husband isn't cheating on you just because it came from a thug. The corruption of the DNC and the Clinton Foundation is still a thing. But we just learned a minute ago that you think corruption is just, really kind of cool. And what was that you said again? It's destabilizing our democracy? What destabilizes our democracy more than you guys rigging the primary, which has been proven by the leaked emails? The DNC was working to get Hillary elected the whole time. 4 or 5 DNC staff members have stepped down in disgrace. You were supposed to be the shiny new replacement, the face of not corruption. And instead, you're waltzing around saying corruption is not a bad thing. And also, if you find out about our corruption from someone that we don't like, then it doesn't count. We get a do-over because you got the truth from that asshole. Maybe after Donna Brazile steps down in disgrace, we can let Anthony Weiner take over. I'm sure he'll clean up the DNC's image problem. That'll be easy for him because he's got a really good, clean reputation. That's our show, but don't forget, we have 2 episodes of Redacted Tonight per week. You can get them all at youtube.com/redactedtonight. Also, if you're in the U.S., you can just text the word redacted to 444-999. It signs you up to our once-a-week free email updates on our videos and various other exclusive content. We also have a podcast called Moment of Clarity that is free on iTunes and Stitcher. It is once a week, the audio of my interviews and much more. So check that out on iTunes and Stitcher. And we're at Facebook. You can just look up Redacted Tonight. All right. Good night and keep fighting.